for the Crust Corner.
The Crush Corner is live.
Oh yeah, what's up, buddy?
What's up, man? I love the Andy's voice in the beginning of that when she's like, "Time for the Crush Corner." It never gets old.
Oh, it never gets old, man. Never ever.
It's funny shit.
It really is. It's fantastic. So what's going on, my man?
Not too much. I mean, shit, man. The last thing we did was the Halloween special. And,
yep.
It's there's absolutely been a lot of big changes that are, of course, for us dicey to talk about, but
yes,
big changes nonetheless though. But that was a good time. The Halloween special was cool.
Oh yeah, it was awesome, man. It was fun being able to debut in the Pit series and be the first to see it too, like everybody else. It was a great job on your part, man, and all the editing. It was a lot of fun doing it.
That was your debut acting, That's
awesome. It, man. I'm off and running now. I'm waiting for the phone to start ringing.
You got to get your portfolio together. Get some studio shots.
Yeah. I guess I got to go down that road now.
I had a guy, one of my customers, dude. He watched it. And he was like, "Yeah, man." He's like, I saw the knife come into the head, and I was like, "Oh my god!" Like I said, "Yeah, it was pretty convincing special effects." $4 melon from Stop and Shop and some fake blood, and we pulled it off nicely.
Yeah, man, it was perfect stunt double. Perfect.
The head was intact.
Yeah, bro.
That was good. And that's the first time we had multiple people come into the live feed, which was absolutely hilarious.
Yes, absolutely hilarious.
Audio difficulties going on, which made it even that much more fun because at that point we were all feeling pretty good and we were pretty just having a good time laughing and stuff, and it was like that wild echo was like complete Twilight Zone shit happening. So it's perfect for Halloween.
Oh, perfect. Absolutely perfect. Excelente.
So obviously, we do our thing core, and it's like I always have our little flash up thing about the no politics thing,
Yes.
And
yep.
I mean, this is obviously a pretty intense time, and I think without getting too deep into it, there's plenty of people that are pleased with the change that we see. Plenty of people that are upset, but it's and there's still, it's incredible because even at that pivotal point, there's still this lingering feeling of uncertainty, which isn't great for anyone. It's not good for friends or family or a country on
right.
That. It's kind of wild. So that unsettled or unfinished business, so to speak, it's like, what the hell?
Yeah, I mean, I think like we had talked, it felt like it was, something more of a popularity contest versus a political contest, but for the right reasons. I mean, if depending on which side you fall on with all that stuff. But yeah, I think that the country felt like change was needed, and that was the route that they went, and when it was all said and done. So But an interesting time for us, in our world, in our lifetime to see all of this stuff kind of go on, because like, I mean, it's like we talked, I mean, you got like someone who just came in and, everybody talks about how old he is and this and that. And then, 4 years goes quick. It's like, so where's that party go from here? And then it's like, well, hey, Trump actually only won once. He could actually run again if he wanted to. I mean, it's just interesting times, man, all the way around. But in the end, I think the key is to hopefully just be kind to one another, just try to get back to this idea of being like one nation, and just trying to keep moving forward and strive like we do on here, man, try to just keep it moving forward and not be disgruntled or upset about any of it. Just move forward, and be the best you can be, and help one another versus hurt one another.
And obviously we had our short-lived campaign. We got into it a little bit late. It was
next time, man.
low prestige jackal low prestige jackal campaign that was about a week. It was probably about a week old. Maybe it was 2 weeks old. So
Yeah. But hey, you know what? We learned a lot, right?
yeah,
We got to get started earlier. We got to get a
yeah,
real big time money backer,
yeah.
and just get out there, man. We'll make it happen.
We did have nice suits. We looked pretty good.
Yeah, man. I thought so. We cleaned up pretty well.
We cleaned up pretty well.
Yeah.
But there's always there's always 4 years from now. We'll campaign again. Maybe our campaign budget will be more than $76, and we'll see what we can do with that.
Exactly. Hey, what's going on, Dave? How are you? What's up, Eric? Yeah,
So,
yeah, we'll have to do some fundraising.
Actually, a good point with the timing. The timing of the election and stuff was when I decided to drop the Crush the World shirts.
Yep.
Brought those down to almost pretty much half the cost of what they are. And then, I had them. I did election day. I did the $10 sale, and then I let it go because it was election day apparently for about 5 days after that. And I actually decided, like, I think I'm going to keep those. I think I'm going to keep those $10 on the website because they're
Nice.
it's a good motto. It's good for any time, and I think it's actually really important for this time. And Crush the World, a lot with Crush, Kill, Destroy. You have this almost a forceful or kind of aggressive slogan.
Sure.
When you dig deep, and it doesn't take much to read about and look into it. That's really not what it's about. So Crush the World is basically the culmination of everything that we all do, even collectively. And
Yep.
that's a huge point that you said before about finding this middle ground with each other as far as the election was concerned and moving forward. It's a collective thing.
Yeah.
It's not me or you or one person. It's a collective thing. And
Absolutely. Oh yeah, definitely.
And those are things actually I really appreciate about what Karen does. What she's gonna come on and talk to us tonight, because she has this. I mean, within her work and her creativity, it's a collective thing. It's going out to see bands, report on bands, jive with people, talk to people, and then what she puts back out there, it's just this. It's a collective thing. Like I say, it's awesome. So and that's within the ideas of some of the Crush, Kill, Destroy thing.
Yeah, absolutely, man.
Yeah, it's very cool. So,
No question.
So a couple things. The crew neck sweatshirts that I dropped a couple weeks ago. A lot of people asked me. If they could do different designs on them, because I only put the one design out there, and absolutely.
Right.
And the easiest thing to do always with any of the designs or things on the website is just email me. Because I had I think Lori asked me for a different design on one of the hoodies. The hoodies are available. Okay. I got 3 designs up on the website, but it's like I could pretty much print anything on there. So
sweet, that's perfect.
Yeah, buddy.
Yeah, doggy.
New stuff. I dropped the big jumbo stickers last week or 2 weeks ago. Those are wicked. Actually, the only sticker I put on my truck when I designed it, and then I actually got it from the company. I was like, wow, I really like this sticker. So I slapped it on the back of my truck.
Nice.
Tracy stole one, which was flattering. She's like, can I have one of those? I'm like, heck yeah, you can have one. So she's got one of my trucks. And most of those, me, like if I do putting orders together, I always like to throw free stuff in there. So
yeah,
it's a big sticker, and it may end up in your order if you.
Nice. It is a very cool sticker.
Beanies are still $10. I dropped the price a long time ago. They're still $10. It's cold out. Grab a beanie.
Yeah, grab a beanie. They're great too. Very cozy. Keep my dome nice and warm.
Keep your dome warm. The gloves are still available. I got a good amount of those in stock. I just sent out a couple recently.
Sweet.
I really dig those. They're great for riding, and they're pretty warm actually. Those are awesome. All on the website. And then the newest. Oh, I got the new buttons. You see the new buttons, dude?
Yeah, dude. They're sweet.
They're pretty cool. Yeah, I love these little jammies, man. Do it damn good.
Do it damn good.
Across the board, whatever you do. So I think upcoming stuff, Corey. We're moving into, this is exciting too. Unbelievably, we're coming to the end of the year in a sense. We've done
Amazing.
This is our holy crap. What episode is this for us?
16?
16.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is the first of the final 4, which I've been tagging and using, and it just sounds cool. So we have
yes, sir.
Karen's kicking off our final 4.
It's awesome.
We have 2 weeks from now, the 28th is well, I call her Cahoba Vocals, but Tiny.
Yeah.
After that is my buddy Herman, and then us finally do a little wrap up at the end of the year. So that's going to be fun. And
absolutely,
we'll probably do. I'm thinking we're going to do a Black Friday sale, which I'm like, actually absolutely despise Black Friday shopping because of what it turns into, what it represents. And there's almost a sense of like, you can't really do it this year because of the pandemic. And I'm like,
yeah,
you know,
yep.
So, but I'll definitely do some specials and stuff on the website and drop some prices so people can grab some cool shit. You know?
Yeah, man, absolutely. That'll be it. We're in that time of year, man, already. It's crazy. I'm driving around. I'm seeing all the Christmas lights out already. We're just like, oh my God.
I know. It's insane, dude.
It's not even Thanksgiving yet.
We have, and then going into the new year, we have, we already started to line up guests, and it's really great because of social media. One of the positive intentions of the use of it, we were able to really branch out and talk to more people, and we're starting to connect with people that aren't necessarily local or even, you know, so it's nice to be able to reach out and have that and broaden our connection with everybody. That is a good thing.
It sure is, man. Yeah. And then, and that's what's really cool too. Cause, in some cases, I know some of the folks we've been talking about are connections from prior guests and stuff. So it's nice to see that people get to not only sharing, you know, the message, but those that are receiving that are actually really enjoying the idea of what it's all about and want to be a part of it. So it's great.
Yeah, absolutely. And on that note, I think, speaking about being connected, without further ado, I think that we should welcome Karen to the Crush Corner.
Sweet.
KP in the house. What?
I'm here.
You made it.
What's up?
I'm wearing my shirt.
Yeah,
thank
you so much. What was it like tonight? So you had to go down to Cafe 9 and do your thing. Was it wicked cold out? I actually looked on my phone. It was like 39 degrees out.
Yes. Yeah. You know, when I first got there, I got there for 6. And I didn't even have my coat on. I was so bundled up just with what I was wearing under my coat that I got out of the car and I'm like, no, you know, I pulled, you know, I'm not new to this. I had, you know, I have 2 sons. They played sports, you know.
Yeah.
Please, like Friday night football and all that thing. So I was ready for this. So I was so bundled up without the coat. And I'm like, no, I'm good right now. I don't want to get too cocky, but I'm good right now. And then like I was good with the coat on. I had the hood on, and then my toes started to get numb.
Oh boy.
And I'm like, okay, don't complain. But you know, Paul from Cafe 9 is just, I don't know if Paul's like one of the great guys in the whole community. And you know, he's always like, yo, you okay, KP? You good, KP? You good, hon? And I'm like, I'm like, dude, I'm not gonna lie to him. Like, dude, my toes are numb. But the rest of me is fine. It's November. I mean,
yep. And we just came off of like 4 days of 70-degree weather, so it's like, it's bound to happen.
I knew how it was going to be. It's like I wasn't going to sit there and like complain and anything. And plus, it's just it's so much fun to be out.
Yeah.
And, to be there, and this is the second rooftop concert they did.
Yeah.
Yep. That's right.
And they were both so much fun. So
that's so great.
Oh, awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us. Cheers for being here.
Cheers.
Thanks for having me.
Clink, clink.
Yes, clink it up. Whoop.
And you haven't really been formally introduced to Corey, so that's
hi, Corey.
What's going on?
You can call me KP.
Awesome.
That's Corey.
Yeah, been looking forward to this.
Me too.
Been doing some looking at your background, and you're a very interesting person for sure.
I think, I was thinking about this, Karen, like there's this to me, and maybe you can help me out with this. I grew up in Bridgeport. Are you from New Haven or?
I'm from East Haven. I grew
From
up in East.
Haven.
Yeah, I made that huge move from East Haven to North Haven. So yeah.
Which I think we both realized not that long ago that we were actually living in the same town.
Yes, I know, right? That's so cool.
But I grew up in Bridgeport, and then at some point I started to go. It's probably in oh my god, like the late 80s, early 90s. I started to go into New Haven.
Mm-hmm.
Probably a girl I was dating. It's like, you gotta come to this coffee shop, and like they do like poetry, and they like play music, and they make like soup and shit. And I was like, yeah, that's cool. And I would go into New Haven. It was this other world for me. One way streets. I was like, I
know, right?
I can't get to where I'm going, and I just found it so wild. It was so wild to me. It was like this, here I am, 19, 20 years old, whatever, and it's like this big city, and there's all this stuff happening. When did you, get like a foot or 2 feet into the New Haven scene, I guess we can call it?
Okay, so my story's kind of, I don't know how much you know of it, so I'll give you the condensed version of it. So I grew up in East Haven in the 80s, and the big thing was like getting on the bus and taking the bus to New Haven and going to the Chapel Square Mall. So I don't know how old you guys are, but I'm 53, so
49.
Yeah. Okay. So I was in the 80s. I was a teenager, so that was like our big shopping excursion, big deal going into the city. And you used to be able to get into, how much I should say about this, whatever, but you could be able, I'm not telling anybody anything they don't know. You could get into bars and things.
Yeah.
Then, so we would go to some different places if we could get in.
Sure.
We would go to these different bar, like Toad's was a big deal to go to Toad's. Toad's was the place to get into. Then there was Gentry's. There was a few other places.
Yeah.
And so I would go into New Haven then. My parents grew up in New Haven. My parents are both like, my mother grew up on Worcester Street, off Worcester Street. My dad, in the city and stuff. So it wasn't like I wasn't familiar with New Haven. It's right there. Yeah. That being said, I met my husband. I asked him to my prom, and we stayed together. And then I went to college, and I was working so hard. I worked my way through college, all that I still would go into New Haven, but I wasn't like hard partying type of thing in New Haven.
Yeah.
And then like I got out of college. I'm a physical therapist. I don't know if you guys knew that. That's what I went to college for.
Yeah,
that's what I have my degree in.
Yeah, that's what I kind of put 2 and 2 together based on some stuff I was reading, but I wasn't 100% sure. So, okay, there you go.
Yes, I went to Quinnipiac. I lived home, and then I got my degree, got married, moved to North Haven. A few years later, had kids, and then I didn't do anything New Haven related except maybe shopping and dinner here and there. And then in about 2013, 2012. So my kids are now 25 and 22. I have 2 boys.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
They were like high school, just coming out of middle school age. And it's like, I want to like go out and do some more stuff. I've been like taking care of my parents, taking care of my kids. I want to do some things. I had gotten a master's degree in integrative medicine.
Oh, wow.
And it was a writing-based program. And so I started writing. I used to write when I was younger. I started writing in this program again. And then, like we went to see a show at Cafe 9. Never been to Cafe 9, ever. Always drove past it. Always wanted to go. Missed that whole era.
Yeah,
there's my dog.
So when people my age were going there, I wasn't going there. When that, as I'm in like in my 30s, 40s or whatever, I wasn't going there. So I wanted to go. I went. My husband and I went to see a band. And he it's not that he didn't like it. I loved it. I always loved the music. I loved everything about it. And he was like, I'm like, I want to go back. They have the list of things. I want to go to this. I want to go to this. I want to go to this. And he's like, I'd go. I said, you don't care if I go? He works all the time. He works like crazy. I want to go to this on a Monday, this on a Wednesday. They have something every night. So I started going to shows at Cafe 9. and there was a show there called Get to the Point that Chris Arnott used to run at the first Monday of every month.
Yep.
And I used to grab the Advocate. Again, I'm married, I have kids, I'm doing these things. That thing came out every Wednesday. I grabbed it and read it from cover to cover. And the funny thing with that is I ended up Chris Arnott. Then I meet Craig Gilbert, who writes. And I'm like, "You're Craig Gilbert from the Advocate." Then I end up meeting all these people. Now I work for Paul Bass, who was the editor of the So my life just came in. I ended up. It was like I was in New Haven. I know it's a long story, but that's my story. As my students say, it's my origin story. They say I have a great origin story. I started like I was like that teenager 80s. College, Saturday night dance night at Toad's Girl.
Sure.
A lot of dead air. I guess I go this way with the camera. Dead air. And then I build up again. And now, it's to the point now I've been performing down there since 2014.
Yeah, it's so wild.
I've been writing for the Indies since 2016.
Wow.
And yes, and then now I'm associated with it. Like people think a lot of people think I've been there for 20 years.
Yeah. That's a really good point, because I think one of the things I was thinking of is this, for me personally, coming into New Haven, I was making these connections, and like I was meeting people, but it was always on this it was always in a creative atmosphere on a level that was it was like an understood thing and a head nod, because you were there for music and art and poetry and this, and it was like I never even got to know so many people's names. It was like, and like even as I got older, I was like, I would run into these people again, and I would think of them as like, an acquaintance or friend from New Haven. I was like, what? And I'm like, they would have there's a lot of nicknames in downtown New Haven. And I'd be like, man, I've known this dude for 20 years, but I don't really know his name. But I always thought that was such a great thing in the creative world. It was just you had this bond with these people that were just like, you're all doing the same thing. Everyone was kind of chasing the same thing in a sense. It was creativity and having a good time and being together. So I think that's one thing I do love about downtown New Haven.
I really I always wanted to be a writer. I always wanted, when I was just telling my students, they did like I teach at ECA now, and they interviewed me, and one of the students interviewed me separate from everybody else. And we got into this stuff from when I was a little kid. And part of the interview was about how they dressed me up like Cher, and I sang a Cher song when I was like 5 or something ridiculous. And my other students were like, "Why didn't you tell us that?" And we would have wrote about it. And I'm like, because she asked me. It's not something you just bring up in conversation. So you're like, "Oh, hey, how you doing?" "Oh, I'm great. I performed a Cher when I was 5 in my grandmother's living room." So
Jimmy, did you find that video, man, or what?
Oh, no.
Can you imagine? So it's like, I had these things in my life, and then I was like super shy. So like, why did I do that? I would have never done that at like 12. It was just this weird, my life has been so weird and odd like that. But I think what happened to me is as I got older, and I was just talking about this with somebody, and I can't remember who. Oh, I think Brian, my editor, Brian Slattery, who's the arts editor at the Indie. We're talking about like the idea of getting older and becoming like more interesting. And because there's this idea again. I'm 50. I am. Hopefully, right.
I hope I am.
Hopefully, I think you are. Woo! I'll be more interesting after 2 of these.
Bam!
but the idea that in my, I guess, say when I was a kid, everybody seemed. People and when I think of people in their 40s and 50s when I was a kid, they seemed ancient. Like old. And now you see people that are in their 50s, 60s, 70s, and there's this vibrancy. And I think what happened is that age group, like my mom passed away almost 2 years ago. She was in her 90s. That age group they were their family, especially Italian, Catholic. They were their family. They didn't do anything besides take care of their family, really. And I'm sure there were other people. I'm sure there were women who did. I'm not saying there weren't, but most of the ones I know, you were expected. I was expected, which I did, to get married, have my children, take care of my children, take care of my husband, take care of my house, blah, blah, blah. But I think that now what happens is people see that you don't have to say, well, I'm in my 50s, 60s. It's time to slow down.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's a time, and which is kind of what I did. I got into my 40s, the late 40s, and I'm like, now I can do whatever I want. People will say, oh, your son's going to college. What are you going to do? I'm like, whatever the fuck I want.
There you go.
You know, like I can swear, right? I can swear, right? Well, yeah, but they would laugh at me. They'd say, what are you going to do? And I'm like, whatever the fuck I want, because I didn't have to like, I don't say report in, but you know,
I know what you're saying.
Listen, I had for a while there, I had one kid in New York, one kid at NYU, and one kid at UMass. And my mother would say to me, I'd say, well, I'm going out. And she'd be like, well, where are your kids? I'm like, out of state. I don't know what they're doing. They're in college. I have no idea what they're doing.
Hey, they're technically adults, right? I mean, you're always going to worry about your kids. I have two as well.
But and you always listen. Again, they're 25 and 22. One lives in New York. He stayed in New York. The other one is kind of in a job search now. He may end up in New York as well. But I of course, especially now with everything going on, I worry about them. I think about them all the time. I can't say I sit around and fret, but I worry about them, and you don't stop worrying about them because they're adults. But the idea that I'm not responsible. I can't be responsible for what they're doing out of state. I can't be responsible. I've given them what they need to have to be out in the world.
Yep.
I can't say, well, I might go to Cafe 9 tonight. Let me see what my kids are doing out of state. It's like, it doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
But my mother didn't, I love her, but she didn't get that. It was hard for her to get that. And that's because that's how she was, that's that mindset of that age group. That's kind of my point. We don't have that. I don't think that's there anymore, which is nice. You have like the opportunities and the freedom to, if I want to write, I want to draw, I want to paint, I want to whatever.
Yeah.
I can, it's not like, oh, I have to step it up, that I can slow down, but it's my choice to.
Yeah.
I get that.
I think the three of us are covering the gamut of the age groups of children, because you're talking about your sons, and then Corey's pretty much like high school.
Yeah. Okay. 14 and 16.
Wow. Okay. Yeah.
I have this like 6-year-old. So it's like definitely relating and understanding what you're saying. I mean, like she's home for 2 days. She sprained her ankle the other day at school. So I'm like, she's watching a show, and I'm like doing some work on the computer. She's like, Dad, I need some cereal. I'm like, okay. I go get the cereal. Okay. I'm trying to do more work. And she's like, Dad. So it's all these different levels of responsibilities that we have as parents. So
and it doesn't change. So like today, my dad moment was, Dad, can you bring me and my friends to here? And then and then can you pick me up and then bring me here? And I'm like, okay.
It's like a level. It's the level of
driving alone. I remember one time I counted. I drove to the center of North Haven 8 times in one day. Between the football and the thing and the food and the back. And I was like, what? I mean, I know it's the town I live in. It's not like I drove an hour away. But it was like.
But I get it.
This is the 8th time I've been to the center of North Haven today. How is that possible?
Exactly. Yeah.
What's up, Lenny?
So, Karen, I want to ask you about your like personal experience with the creative writing process. Mostly, I think, I mean, anything really, like if you're doing poetry or prose, or if you're writing an article or something like that, if there's something that you see happening when you sit down to write, maybe let's say poetry in particular, if it's a moment that kind of comes to you where you're like, whoa, I need to stop, I need to sit, and I need to get this on paper and capture it. Or do you make a decision to say, I feel like writing some poetry tonight, let's see what happens? Like, is there a different, or both, maybe, I don't know, like, what do you feel about the poetry that you're writing and how it comes out of you? Like,
so that's really actually super interesting, because that's one thing that's COVID has really changed a lot is that even before that, starting to work for the indie. So part of the thing with going downtown was I would go to Cafe 9 and just sit there, order a drink, and bring my journal and write. And that's how I got to know a lot of people, because they'd walk up to me and be like, oh, you have such beautiful penmanship, or, oh, are you a writer? Or, oh, what are you writing today? Or, and I would just start to talk to people. So so a lot of my writing came from sitting in mostly Cafe 9, but other places too, and just kind of listening to what people said or observing something. So a lot of my early poetry is based in that.
Okay.
I have a bunch of poems where I was talking to a bartender or a friend who was a bartender, and we were talking, and somebody would say something. One of them would say something. I'd be like, "Can I use that line?" And they'd be like, "Sure." And then I would write a poem and read it to them or tell them. So once I started working for the indie, and I was going to shows purposefully to write about them, I didn't have that opportunity as much as I used to just sit and observe and listen and get a sense of things. And now with COVID and not being able to be out at all, so now you can't sit in a coffee shop. You don't have that social atmosphere anymore. And not that all of my poetry was like that, but now I have to be now I absolutely have to be more purposeful. So I have to say to myself, I'm going to sit today. I do still sometimes have a line comes to me, or a vision of something, or I see something, and it kind of, the metaphor thing, or stirs up something, and I go to that. But I really had, I hate to say like a dry spell, but when I saw everybody, there's a lot of people, they've made a ton of music, they've done a ton of art during this. I haven't stopped working. I really maybe had a couple weeks, those first couple weeks with school and with the indie. I was catching up. I had a couple big articles I had been working on that I then had to rework because the bands weren't touring anymore that I was writing about. They were still releasing the records. But I've been working. I haven't been bored. The people who are bored, I haven't been bored for 5 minutes.
So
that's awesome.
In all aspects, pretty much you've been able to do stuff remotely, right?
I did school remotely. Anything I've done Zoom interviews and phone interviews. So the idea now with poetry for me is it has to be a little more purposeful than it used to be.
Right. Yeah.
And I had to really try not to revert to who I used to be. And be like, oh my God, you're like, why aren't you writing? You're just like the worst. Like you're just, and be like super critical of myself, because I think all artists are super critical of themselves.
Yeah. I mean,
but I don't want to self-defeat.
You have the inspirations are coming from they come from our real life experiences. And like you say, if you're not experiencing these things, like sitting at Cafe 9 and writing and hearing something, and I get it too, like that immediately when you said that, it's completely relatable for what I do with Crush, Kill, Destroy, because it's something inside that you've already have kind of smoldering, and someone says something and you're like, wait a second, like I'm gonna make a note of that. Me and Corey sit at New England and have a beer, and I'm like, whoa, hang on a second, I gotta make a note in my phone because I think that'll make a good Crush, Kill, Destroy t-shirt.
Exactly. So if you have the journal, the phone, whatever, and I love to write by hand. I mean, I love to write. I love notebooks, pens. I always did. My master's degree, when we did a thing, instead of a thesis, they called it a culminating project. I did my thesis. I did that on writing to heal. So that's something I investigated. I ended up finding a program at Columbia called Narrative Medicine that was partially about that. And that's like, so that just that idea of physically writing.
So is that, if you can even talk about that more, because that was one thing I wanted to ask you about. I had never heard or seen that term,
healing arts,
narrative medicine.
Oh, the narrative. Okay. Yes. So that is an actual program at Columbia University.
Oh, okay.
That a medical doctor who was she kind of introduced it. It's been around a while now. So I think I got my master's degree in 2008, 2006 to 2008. Yeah.
Okay.
So it was already around, but then it like kind of got bigger and bigger. I ended up going to 2 courses at Columbia 2 like weekend type, like 3-4 day courses on a regular one and an advanced one. And
Nice.
And so it's the idea of narrative medicine is that you have like people in the medical community writing about patients, about their experiences with patients, about their own experiences. And then you have, it's also like the idea of like patients and people going through medical issues writing about their experience. And then there's all different levels of that. So the idea of what I started to get into was the writing to heal, which it does writing about illness or an experience with illness.
Oh,
Like I specifically wrote about my dad. My dad was dying.
Yeah.
He was very sick then. While I got into the program, he had a surgery, ended up finding out he had cancer. And then they removed the cancer. And then he was like in the hospital for 7 months with all these medical problems he got from the removal of the cancer. And I was writing in this journal, like journaling all the time. And then I'm like, so I did this autoethnography is the type of study it is, which is actually saying like,
that.
I know, right? Like I didn't know what that. I'm in school, and I still didn't. I had to look up what that was. But the idea is like it's like a self-study.
Okay.
So like there's autobiography. This is like an autoethnography. That's the best way I can. Easiest way to explain it.
Yep.
But yeah, I wrote this whole thing about writing. I noticed all these journal entries are about my dad. So I'm like, well, did writing about my dad's illness help me deal with it? And it did. And then I went into the research was the narrative medicine, the writing to heal, the actual physical act of writing is therapeutic. Produces something and does something almost like exercise. Like, you know, you said, Corey, you said you exercised and you felt better. They did studies where people physically writing out felt better physically after writing longhand.
It's an expression, right? I mean, it's almost therapeutic in a sense, just like if you're talking to somebody, right? Like maybe you don't feel comfortable talking to somebody, but maybe if you could sit there with a pen and just pen your thoughts or what you're feeling or what pissed you off, whatever, right? I mean, I could definitely see how that helps, for sure. Not a doubt.
Right.
What's up, Dave?
That's Dave. That's actually a perfect word for what we're kind of talking about. And especially Dave, chiming in like that. He's going through some health issues right now, and I know, and he's a creative individual, and he's a maker, so to speak. He has written before and stuff. So, and I think it's part of his journey and process of healing and maintaining, so to speak. So you talk about your pops and his health and doing that writing. So obviously that was coming up in a lot of the writing you were doing, but do you like now, maybe more so now, is there anything that you find consistent personally, like when you're writing things, do you go back and look at things and say, wow, there's something that keeps coming up for me, I'm writing about this and this, and it's consistent?
For a while there, well, I have like kind of phases. Like if I look at my old so I have, I'm going to show. So when you said about taking out some poems, so this is funny. I'm sure. So this folder, I see how thick it is.
Oh, look at that.
This is like all these typed out poems I had.
Crush Corner late night. We're going to 1 a.m. folks.
Get your popcorn ready.
That's just printed out. Like, so the idea was that like initially it just like things would just like were just flooding out of me. I think just from not having done it and then doing it, and it was just like pouring out of me. And then what I found is a lot of it was illness related. A lot of it was about gaining my independence.
Sure. Yeah.
From or feeling out who I was, because I was so identified as, a healer, physical therapist. So I'm taking care of people at work.
Sure.
I'm taking care of my children and husband. I'm taking care of my parents. Yeah. It's like I'm never not taking care of. And so then now the kids are older. My father's gone. I'm still taking care of my mother. My mother ended up having medical issues and taking care. But who am I? What am I doing? Like, am I just going to sit around and wait for my husband? No offense to him, but am I going to just sit around and wait for my husband to come home?
Sure. Yeah.
am I going to sit around and wait for my kids to come home from college? Like, what am I doing?
Right.
So it's like that idea of, and is it okay? Like because, people don't like when, how do I put this? A lot of people, I feel like everybody's a mirror.
Yep.
The whole world, everybody's a mirror. So when you see somebody doing something, okay, this is where judgment comes in. So the way I explained judgment to my children was this. Judgment in the sense of what you don't want to do is you don't want to like just look at people and just be like critical, like outwardly just generally critical, like I don't like their hair, I don't like their glasses, I don't like this, that's just like spewing.
Right.
But you have to judge because people will say, excuse me, they'll say, oh, no judgment. You have to have a degree of judgment.
I agree with you.
Let's just say, and the best example I can give of that is you see somebody doing something dangerous. They're hurting themselves.
Yes.
And you see that and you say, I don't want to be that. I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like my son, I'll say this, my older son, Anthony, he saw the movie Requiem for a Dream. And he's like, I will never stick a needle in my arm. I will never do any drugs that have to do with needles. And I said, good. That's your judgment.
That's the judgment.
Right.
You used your judgment to say, I never want to stick a needle in my arm.
Yeah. That's
good.
That's a great.
Yeah. Very good.
You know what I mean? So I think that what happens with people is they look, so I have to use myself. I don't, it's not an ego thing, but I'll say people would look at me and be like, well, so you're like, okay, like leaving the house, like, you're going to like go out to this bar, like your kids, like what does your husband think of that? And I'd be like, but
call him up.
What my husband thinks of it. Like, what do you care? You know what I mean? But they're looking at it because they're saying, I think are saying like, they would say to themselves, why am I? That's me. What am I going to do? Why am I not out? Why am I?
They're not looking at a mirror, right? They're looking through you. And there's that idea of jealousy, right? Whatever. Everyone always thinks the Joneses, right? The grass is always greener or whatever.
Corey. And honestly, I don't think a lot of it is jealousy. I think a lot of it is they see somebody doing something and they say, why am I not doing that?
Sure. Yeah.
That's the mirror.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
So absolutely. I totally get it.
Thing I think so. I don't think it's so much jealousy or envy. And I think it can get to that. It can absolutely.
Sure.
But I think more so it's people, they're trying to make decisions for themselves.
Yeah. Choices, right?
Yeah. And they see somebody doing something and maybe it looks easy for that person. And they want to know why it's so hard for them. And I think I've done it too.
Yeah,
I think we've all done it.
Absolutely.
That's a great idea to think about, and actually for me personally, it's an opportunity to reflect on one of the most recent shirts that I put out, which was the Crush, Kill, Destroy shirt. On the back, it has his Tibetan dagger, and it says "Don't become what you hate," and it's exactly that. It's a reflection. And I told Corey a couple weeks ago, we were talking. And that Don't Become What You Hate, Crush, Kill, Destroy, the shirt. It came from this experience I had when I was really judging people, and not in a good way to make a good decision. Don't hurt myself. I found myself in this situation where I was like looking at people. And I was like, oh, this guy and that guy, and I was like, oh my god, like I'm saying all this stuff, and I'm becoming exactly what I don't like.
Yeah.
So it is this reflective kind of thing, where you have to step back and say, whoa, you can own your responsibility and how you live your life and what you do, and go out to the bar because everything is jiving and things are cool and you're comfortable with that, and it is okay and it is responsible, and you don't everything is let go, but you still have these people saying, what are you doing out? What are you doing here? Like, that's crazy, so, this is
Michael.
We didn't. We have
Karen, to give a shout out to our buddy Michael.
Hi,
do have a shout out. Yes, it's actually super important because
very important
we're living in. So Mike, and I really believe, I'm sure Mike is okay with this because it's Mike. So we talked to Mike a couple days ago, and he wasn't feeling well. Him and his wife, and he just got tested. And he is positive with COVID.
Oh,
so he's home, sweating it out.
Oh, feel better.
Feel better, brother.
Good spirits, and he's
sending the vibes.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah. He's
Good vibes to you.
with his work and stuff. He knew there was a risk and a chance to be exposed, and almost expected it. So he's doing what he needs to do to get through it. And I wish him well. And maybe I'll bring him a care package of Tito's soda or something like that. But Mike, hang in there, man.
Yes, sir. Dave.
Yeah. I'm so glad Dave's hanging out with us tonight. It's so awesome.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah. And I mean, the thing is that, I've never been the person who said, like, listen, this is what I did with my life. You need to do it too. Yeah. I'm just living the best life I can possibly live. And especially now with the way things are going, like people are like, oh, well, you're so lucky to have a job. I'm like, I never said I wasn't, you know what I mean? Like, I'm just doing the thing is that as everything came to me, I said yes, because I knew that when Brian said to me, do you ever think about working for the Indie? I'm like, no. And he's like, you want to? I'm like, well, yeah, because he wouldn't have asked me to do it if he didn't think I could do it.
Sure.
And did I ever write? No, I never went to school for writing. I'm not a journalist by profession, but he thought I could do it. I did it. I love it. And same thing with the radio show. Frank Ratelli said to me, do you ever think about doing a radio show? I said, no. Yeah. Would you like to do a radio show? I've always wanted a spoken word poetry show on Cygnus. And I said, sure, because they don't ask 50-year-old women to write for money. Like, that just doesn't happen in the world. It just doesn't. They don't. I mean, I don't have, I should say 50-year-old women without experience. It's not a thing you hear about often. And I was offered these things and I said, yes. And listen, I can't imagine that if I was doing a bad job that Paul, Bass, or Brian wouldn't have said already, you're done.
Yeah.
I mean, it's been 4 years. They would have said you're done. When Saul asked me to teach at ECA, and I was like, I mean, he asked me on the phone. I was almost like in my house. I was like, me? Like, I literally like looked around my house. I'm like, what the fuck's wrong with you? But so when he asked me to do that, and I always wanted to be a teacher. I always wanted to do that. And I'm like, I can be a teacher. Are you sure? And he's like, yeah, you don't have to have here I am asking him. He asked me, I'm asking, are you sure? And I had to say yes, because I was a dream of mine. All these things that when I was younger, I wanted to do that were offered to me. Like truthfully, right now I've been on stage, I've performed with a band, I've read my poems, I've been on Cafe 9 stage so many times. Every time I walk on it, I was grateful. Like, it was the first time I ever did it. I never thought my life was going to, if anyone had told me 10 years ago, never mind 5, like 20, 30, 10. Oh, there he is. There's Saul. Hi, Saul. Yes.
Welcome, Saul.
One of my enablers. Hi, Saul. But yeah, I mean, it's if anyone had told me 10 years ago that this would be my life, I would have told them to fuck off.
There you go.
I would have told them, I'm like, shut the fuck up. I'm like, shut up.
Yeah.
It's not. No.
So your journalistic start was literally 4 years ago. I mean, the poetry is probably a part, but were you writing?
The poetry started. I started performing the poetry at Cafe 9 around 2014.
Okay.
When I first went up to, Craig kind of bullied Chris Arnott into letting me get on the stage that night. I was like, it was the only night I didn't bring my notebook. I read something from an email, something I was on my phone. And then I ended up being on I Get to the Point every month. And then Margaret Milano did a show called Words and Music. Took over, and I did that, and then I was hosting that for a while, and it just built from there. But nice. I didn't know Brian. I was actually hanging out at a show at Bar when Bar used to have the free music on Wednesdays. And my friends were playing, and they were opening, and what was that dude's name? Oh my God, what the hell was his name? And he's from New York. Jason Molina? No, not Jason. What the hell's the guy's name? He owns a bar there. Why can't I think of who he is? Anyway, he was doing a sound check and he was getting mad. and they shut the room. And I was in the room with my friends who were in the band, No Line North, and we're talking, and Brian's in the band, and we were just talking and talking. And I didn't know Brian before, but we just talked a lot. And the next day he messaged me and said, "Did you ever think of writing for the Indie?" And I'm like, "No." And he's like, "Would you want to?" And I'm like, "Well, yeah, but can I?" And he's like, "Oh, you're out at all these shows taking videos and pictures. He's like, you're doing like 50% of the job anyway. Let's have coffee." So I'm not even kidding you. That was a Thursday. I met him for coffee on a Friday. The next Wednesday, I covered my friend's show at Bar again, a different show. And I covered the show, and I was in the Indie 2 days later. And I didn't tell anybody. Like 2 people knew. And Brian's like, "Don't tell anybody." And that Friday, he put the article out, and he put, from our latest from our newest reporter, Karen Ponzio. And I mean, the people came in, they're like, "I didn't know you were a journalist." And I'm like, I'm not. I guess I am now. I just learned. I learned on the job.
That's cool.
You know what? I love it. I love it. Brian said one thing to me, and I still do it. And I teach my students that too. Brian said to me, "You have one job: make people want to come to New Haven."
Yeah.
And I told my students, you can't beat the enthusiasm. If you have the enthusiasm.
Yeah.
For the
when
writing,
you see that show you wrote about, it was a Caveman, and then there was another band that played.
Telegram Scam. That's my friend Tim's band.
Yeah.
I walked in. I said, I have two good news and bad news, maybe. I go, "I got a job. I'm writing for the Indie." He's like, "That's awesome." I said, "I'm covering the show tonight." And he's like, "Oh, fuck."
But the thing that was really cool was like reading that, your review, just how descriptive, and just, the things you called out that you noticed about the room, and, the different sequences of the changing of the bands, and just, it was really well written in terms of like almost feeling like you were there. It was really well done. And
that's what he told me to do, and that's
that's why I was going to say, because as soon as you said that, that's what popped into my head, because I felt like I could almost, if I had any artistic ability, I could almost draw what you were writing. It was really well done.
Well, that's sweet. Thank you. Thank you for reading.
No, yeah, no problem.
I mean, I think that's a good point though, Corey, because we've been chatting about stuff, and even though, especially now with everything going on, it's like you can utilize these ways to live creatively, and we're almost forced to. And people that might not think that they're creative are being pushed in this direction to live creatively, and get out of their comfort zone and say like, well, that we're living in a fucking pandemic. This is the way we need to do things now. So like, you're going to shake up my routine, make me do things different. I was uncomfortable with a lot of stuff within the business and whatnot, but it's like living creatively, thinking creatively, and being forced to maybe look at things a little bit differently. It's like, we have to do that. So, you can, like you said, you wish that you had that aspect of, or drawing or painting or whatever, but you still, I even see it on your Instagram where you stop and you take these moments and you're like, you know what? I'm going to take a picture of this motherfucking sunset because it's kind of awesome. And we may have had that before, but I think it's heightened now with artists and with people that maybe haven't really stopped to take the time to do that, because we're forced to slow down our world.
That's the huge thing is the time. So like I said, this is not a brag, but I've not had time to be bored. If anything, I things got kicked up with having to get more creative with school, with doing the distance learning and trying to think of ways, because again, I didn't have a lot of experience with that. And now I have to do it another way.
Right.
And the reporting, and trying to find these things where before there was like tons of stuff going on. Now there's not. So finding what's out there and what to do. So I didn't have a lot of, so I pulled away from a lot of the creative stuff I have. But see, the other thing I want to mention is that there's a lot of people who go, well, oh, I'm not creative. I can't write. I can't paint. I can't this. They just don't do it. And they also think, I think there's this line of reasoning that if you're creative, you have to create something you can monetize. And that can be difficult where people are like, oh, I make earrings to sell, or I paint, I need to be in an art show. No, you can listen. When I did Citywide Open Studios last year for the first time. So I started going to it because of Craig.
Yeah.
And, you know, when I met him and he's like, oh, I'm going to do this thing. You should come. It's all this art. So I would go. So last year was the first year that I did it. And I remember sitting they had those little rooms at the Yale building.
Yeah.
So sitting in my little room. Yeah. And this woman comes in and she's like, oh, I wish I could. I have, you know, my poetry up and books and things like that. And she's like, oh, I wish I could write. And I said, you can't. And she's like,
the jewelry stuff too. Was that because you were doing the jewelry stuff? Okay.
I had jewelry where I do a lot of word based.
I have some of that jewelry. So just so people.
Oh yeah. Yes. The note. Yeah. There you go. Yep. Oh, the was very popular.
Nice. That's great stuff.
Yep, that's all from a manual typewriter I have. But people were, you know, one woman came in and I remember her and I said, listen, on your way home, stop at the dollar store and buy yourself just $1 cute little journal and a pen and go home and write. I said, that's all you need to write. Like, you don't need a degree. You don't need a class. You don't need to be somebody you have to say, I'm a writer, you know, just get it, go do that. And it was like, and she's like, and I hope she did. I don't know if she did or not, obviously, but I hope she did because maybe, or she thought I was insane. I don't know.
It's good to be able to enlighten people to that stuff because maybe you did reach a part of her mind that was like, you know what? Yeah, she's right. I'm going to do this. And there's like, you know, I witnessed it with my daughter who doesn't have any inhibitions. She's like, Dad, I want to paint something. I'm like, okay. And she's like, and that's a big part of it is just to really embrace that stuff and let go of the box that you're in. You're like, I'm not an artist. It's like, no, you can, there's the aspect of healing, like we were talking about before.
Yeah. And
then there is this sense of just letting go and creating art with no intention of, you know, monetizing it or whatever. And that's one of the most beautiful stuff that we create.
Self-expression to some degree.
Kids are the best. Every kid is an artist. Every kid is creative. And then what happens is as they grow, they're kind of put into these little boxes. Not all of them, but a lot of them are put into these little boxes of what they are and aren't. I remember my youngest.
Criticism.
My youngest coming home from school one day and being like, oh, I can't draw like so-and-so. And I'm like, you're not supposed to draw like so-and-so. You're supposed to draw like yourself. And he's like, oh, none of us can do it like him. So a lot of us, I said, no. And I was like, oh God, I remember thinking like, no, don't stop drawing because this one kid is phenomenal at drawing. And I mean, he was like 8 or 9. It was like, he was so young. You know, and I didn't want him at 8 or 9 to start shutting down his artistic expression.
So we're talking about art and expression. I want to ask you about. There's a couple of pieces you've done. That have this. I mean, they have this freedom. I think, and there's these 2 paintings, right, that you did.
Oh, gee, those are paintings I painted over. I still have those. I think.
Okay, they're. To me, I mean, I look at these things and I'm like, there's definitely some kind of feeling that Karen was going through when she did these things.
Did you see underneath those? It was kind of like a swirl.
Yeah.
Okay. Those were 2 paintings that I did at a Nebco paint night.
Oh, yes.
And then I painted over them with this and I was like, ooh, I like them better like this.
One thing I want to ask you about is the no, because it's a repetitive. It's something that shows up in your artwork.
That's a very specific story.
Okay,
very specific.
Well, I want to know about it.
That's a redone. No, you don't. Redone. No, yeah.
I want to KNOW about it, and I want to, if you want to, I want to know about the no.
Oh yeah. So the no started on a very specific night.
Okay.
The no started on the night of the very first presidential debate between Trump and Hillary Clinton.
Here we go.
And I was sitting there watching it.
Interesting. Yeah.
I was sitting there watching it, and she was taught to listen. And I'll say I was a supporter of hers.
Yes.
And she was talking and talking, and he was interrupting her, and he was that's when he was calling her nasty and saying all the things about her. And she was standing there like, and he was just going off. And I looked at, and I was sitting there with my husband, and I was like, no, I can't take this anymore. I can't. I'm like, this is my whole life. This is every woman that age group who has been told their whole life to shut up and listen to the guy talk. I was told when I was younger, my father was a wonderful man, but my father told me to listen. Listen, little girl. Stop and listen. That's how you learn. But he told me, but you always had to listen to men.
Right.
Absolutely.
And that was a big thing. And I grew up, doing what I was told and listening and everything like that, and getting talked over. And listen, I can say this now, I couldn't say it then. I'm an extremely smart girl. I've always been a smart girl. I was smart in school. I was a straight A student. I was valedictorian. I was a book smart girl.
Yeah.
But I also am a smart girl, and I would shove the smart down because nobody people didn't want to hear it.
Yeah.
Unless it served them.
Sure.
So when I would talk, it would be like, and a perfect example of that is music.
Nice.
Right.
Because.
Which you have very good taste in, by the way.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I love music, and I would try to talk, or even sports. I would try to talk to dudes about sports and music.
Yeah.
And,
well,
don't know.
It's a completely transformative time. Exactly what you're bringing up, and it's a delicate thing to talk about. I'm in tune to it more now since my daughter was born. So these are things that I pay attention to, and exactly what you're saying, your own experience with your dad. I find myself really being cautious or paying attention to the words that I choose to say to my daughter, because it's that important. And any gain with women in things that are happening, I pay attention to now. I'm tuned into it because it's so important to me for my daughter in her future. So I definitely appreciate that stuff. And Tracy makes me pay attention to that.
Well, the thing is, I don't want to listen. My dad thought, my dad also was like, my daughter is smarter than everybody else. So he was, he taught me like respect of that, but there still was a lot of it was just the era and the time I grew up in of just when men talked, you shut up. Like a woman would shut up. So it's like, as I got older, I'm like, this isn't right. Like, I just want to, just let me friggin' talk, so it got to this. So I watched this debate, and I kept saying, no. And I started writing no over and over again. And no, because again, I have a journal, I have my thing, I'm always writing. So I'm writing no over and over again. So I just started making,
it was probably like a therapeutic process as that was happening.
Oh my God, it felt so good. No. And then so I'm going to go back. I'm going to cut out a little bit of time there and go and speed up to last year's Citywide Open Studio, because a very interesting thing happened there. So I had been showing my very first art show was at Nebco. So Craig gave me one of the Artist of the Month spots, and I had some of my poetry typed. Sure, and I had some of the notes. I don't even know if I had that much of it. I had the jewelry, a little bit of it. And then I started doing more and more. And when I did Citywide, and I had a lot of that stuff where it was repurposed, stuff, and then some newer stuff and everything. Yeah. I can't tell you how many people came in and started having a back and forth, men and women having a back and forth with each other, or men turning to me and going, this is a little, if I were you, I would have, what you should do with this? And I go, no. And they would just keep talking. Like, I'm like, how do you not? Like, that's how tone deaf.
Right. Lack of awareness.
So it's 2 days. The second day, the last person who came into my room got me so riled. He was just, my poetry was printed too small. I didn't put a title. I think he was a little drunk, but he was just going off on me and kept coming like, in my space and stuff.
Yeah.
And my husband wasn't around. Craig wasn't around. They were out like already cleaning stuff out.
Yeah.
And they were like, well, where is he? We'll kind of not protect me, but you know what I mean? Like, we'll just stay there. And he never came back when they were there.
Right.
He did come back, but when they left to intimidate me more.
Sure.
And it was that idea of, and it proved my point, which is that he doesn't want to hear, like, men. I apologize, but a lot of men don't. I'm not going to say all. A lot of men, don't like to be told no because they're not used to being told no.
Sure.
I mean, so they see it and they take it as like a challenge or a defensive-ness, and that's what was happening in this small room with no's all over it.
So it's got.
You see my point? Yeah.
It's got a level of deepness in a lot of different aspects, and it's great because it's a 2-letter word that's like hitting home in a lot of different places. So I'm glad that you shared that stuff with us, because I do get it, and it makes sense absolutely. So it's in its simplicity, and the stuff that you've painted and put into jewelry, it has very powerful meaning. So I think it's awesome.
It's also gone another level and I did this at Citywide. I actually wrote it on a piece of paper and put it up because I had to keep explaining. Even though I had a little piece about it, I had to still keep explaining about it because it really just riled. I mean, women were coming in going, yeah, that's it. Yeah. Like a lot of a lot of older women, it was awesome. But I still
you should make some yes art.
You know what? I should start doing that in January. But what ended up happening is I wrote on a piece of paper, say no to what doesn't serve you so you can say yes to like what you want. Yeah. So that's kind of what it evolved to, is I would say to people, listen, this may have started with this very specific event.
Right.
But what it really represented to me was what we've already talked about, which is that all of my life I said yes to things that I kind of felt like I had to.
Right.
And what ended up happening to me is I started saying no to things that weren't serving me. And it gave me the opportunity in the room to say yes to what did. And that's the message I wanted. Yeah. And that's what it evolved into. That's what I put on the piece of paper and put up. People were still going back and forth. It just caused a lot of conversations to start, which I think is awesome because that's what art should do.
Sure. That's what art is all about.
That's what it's come to. So I said, again, I quit a job that was not serving me anymore, that was actually making me physically ill. And I ended up being able to have the opportunity to have all these jobs that I love. I would have never been offered probably those jobs if I hadn't said no to all the other stuff.
Yeah. So I just want to make sure people that are hanging out with us tonight, because you refer to it as the Indie. You write for the New Haven Independent.
Yes. Yeah. Indie. Yeah. we call it the Indie. So
you have the cygnusradio.com show, which is how often?
Which is on tomorrow.
Yes.
I'm on every other week.
So it's every other Sunday?
Yeah.
Every other Sunday at 10 a.m.
Okay, at 10 a.m. Awesome. That's so cool. And if people want to check out what you're up to and other art and stuff, okay to do like Instagram stuff?
Yeah, I'm on Instagram. Yeah, KP the Word. Everything pretty much Instagram, Twitter, at KP the Word. On Facebook, I have a Facebook page that's KP the Word. That I put up everything that all the Cygnus stuff is on there, all the links to that, anything like this or anything that if I did an art show or any podcast or anything like that, it would be on there. That's like my professional Facebook page or whatever you want to call it.
Okay. Nice.
Awesome.
Very cool.
You have a good amount of art on the Instagram stuff. And I think reflectively now thinking, it's for me when I have someone come on and we start chatting about stuff, obviously Corey and I talk and we're like, I want to at least have a little bit of a background. And I think going back and talking about the New Haven scene and the connections or the influences and inspiration you get from being in Cafe 9 or anywhere else where you would sit and write, it's like you're like at one point you said, oh, there's like, there's that chick Karen, she's got her notebook with her and she's writing. So you have these like associations and stuff, and I think for me it's like it's so endearing because I feel like at one point somewhere along the line I have it was like maybe seeing you more often at Nebco or events at the shop or other places. I'm like I know her, but I don't know. But it's I think it's so cool to me to be able to, because initially you're connecting with the art of everything and the creativity, whether it's music or poems or paintings, and it's like I know that art, but I don't really know that person. So even crossing paths with you, I'm like, yeah, it's like KP. I know KP, but I'm like I don't really know KP. So
she's infamous.
I mean, I'm accessible. It's that happens in well, again, and typically I'm out like 4 nights a week, like, because not just working, but I just love to go to show. Like that's what we're talking about tonight. It was like, we're all at Cafe, we're all there. And it's like, of course we all went there because we're normally at Cafe 9, like 3-4 nights a week.
Right,
so for once a month, we're going to go the once a month.
Sure.
So the idea, like, I think that there was like this running joke of like people, I was just on Nick DiMaria's podcast a couple of weeks ago, and he's a musician in New Haven, and I cover his stuff a lot and everything. And we were talking about it. I'm like, I go to shows and people would like walk in front of my camera and be like, KP. And I would laugh, because it's like, I'm filming, I'm working, but I got to be friends with everybody and know everybody, and people want to talk to you. So you have to find that balance between hanging out with everybody and working.
Sure.
You know what I mean? And it's like, you don't want to be, and and again, I'm raised to be polite, and I'm not going to say like, get out of my way, but I'm going to, there's a couple people like, I'm like, you can sit with me, but you can't talk to me when I have my camera going, and then they talk to me and I'm like,
well, when you're
people can tell you stories about that.
when you're working in the arts, it's tough to draw that line, because it is it's creative, and you want to involve people, and you want this looseness of things, but you still have to work. So you have to find that line. It's difficult sometimes.
Yeah, and actually now I kind of miss it because I don't see, you don't see anybody anymore. But yet tonight was, we're in the parking lot. They're on the roof.
Right.
So people are like, and Paul was very specific about it. Things are the way things are. It's like the staying apart. And let me tell you, and I'm not going to lie. I wouldn't lie. People were very respectful of it. The people were keeping their distance and from each other. There were like, there were couples and 3-4 groups together, but they were, not near other, not near other people. So it would, the spacing and the mask thing, everything was great. There were still people walking in front of my camera.
Oh, really?
I'm like, seriously?
How is it even possible? 45% capacity, 60 apart.
Like this, and I'm like, oh dear. I think people are just so happy to be out.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, I couldn't get mad because it was like, first of all, I'm not going to get mad. I'm just not. But it's like, it's one thing to be at Cafe 9, and you've been there. You're at Cafe 9, you're up against the front of the stage.
Oh,
people, right, and when you're filming pictures, you've got to be up there.
Oh God, yeah.
If you're in the back, even in the middle of Cafe,
it's all heads.
You're not getting pitch, especially my height. I'm 5'2".
Yeah, you're getting the back of my dome right here.
Yeah, right. So I knew exactly where to go and where to get, and then I would have certain people sometimes who would block me out. Like if it was a little more aggressive crowd or whatever, they'd be like, "KP, I got you," or whatever. And so I, again, wonderful, lovely people. So you're trying to do the best you can with. And you're going to get a head or a person in the way. It's just whatever. It's not looking for perfection. But the idea that I'm in a parking lot.
Right. Outside.
With a show on the roof and there's people all spaced out and there's still people like walking in front of me going like, oh, sorry. And I'm like, whatever. Nothing counts anymore. It's COVID. So it's 2020. It's a crapshoot.
I mean, these are some of the adaptations we've had to do, or you've had to do with what you do, and the spoken word thing, which is you have you're doing the Cafe 9 thing, correct? And New England.
She's at Nebco too, I think.
Well, here's what happened. So I stopped. I wasn't hosting stuff at Cafe 9 unless it was like individual things, like some fundraisers and some different things. Frank Critelli would have me host quite a few things that he did that were like Cygnus related. But then I started doing the open mic at Best Video once a month. I covered the first one. And then Hank asked me to host the second one. And I hosted every one of them. That was the last thing I did before quarantine. So second Wednesday. And then I got asked by Amanda and Patrick to do host an open mic at Nebco third Thursday. So I was doing second Wednesday, third Thursday every month until this happened. And I think the Nebco one I did for a year. It was just a year. We had our like year anniversary, and and the Best Video was September. This September would have been 3 years. So I did that one for like 2.5. And I would always read at the Nebco one because we got a smaller crowd. So I said, Craig, you're reading every time if you're working, and I'm reading every time. And that was actually pretty cool because Craig was the one who pushed me to get on, pushed Chris to put me on stage at Get to the Point. And now here I am. He's like, oh, I don't know if I have anything. I'm like, just find something and get on stage. Like, seriously? Let's turn the tables. Like, let's turn those tables. And he but yeah, so that was fun to do that. Because that's where we start, like where we started. I started. I mean, he was doing that stuff for years before I came around, but it's like our friendship started like that. So it was cool to go back to that at Nebco. And then Best Video, I occasionally read there. But the thing about Best Video that was awesome is Best Video is a neighborhood joint. So you had kids coming in.
I know, it's crazy.
Who, like, never stood up in front of a microphone, or they wanted to play they play piano there, like with their friends, but they're playing in front of those kids. No offense to the adults, but those kids, I miss them so much. Oh, these teenagers get up there. I would have never done that when I was 15. Never. I'm so impressed. It was so beautiful. I got to just get teary-eyed. My babies.
There you go.
Such an Italian grandma.
Right. So Karen, I have one of the poems you read on the, I think it's the latest Cygnus Radio show that you did, and I took the liberty because I feel like we having these cross connections and almost your appreciation for bands, which means you have 2, 3, 4 people creating collectively together, and we're talking about this collective creativeness. So I put this video together with some of your art and your spoken word and some of my Gouda drum that I play, which people always seem to find this connection to.
Killer drum.
Nice.
Because you have like, you can, the spoken word in itself is the intention I think is to quiet your mind, and really listen to the words and stuff. But you also have these layers that can be added to things, which when I'm creating stuff too, I find there's an added element, if it needs it or not. But it's just it just turns into when you maybe it's a representation of what we need to do to kind of come together, especially with things that are happening in the world, and remember that. And maybe that's what my motivation was. So anyways, it's the last poem you read on the last episode that you did.
Okay.
And I forget the name of the poem, and I think I don't want to say it's I don't want to.
You read a couple.
It was the last poem, the third poem, I believe, and it was not bloodletting. Was it bloodletting?
That was the first one.
It might have been.
That was the first one she read.
No, actually, you know what? It was the segment that I used when I put the promo together, like the end of it.
I did one. I did the Ghost of Mrs. Ponzio. That show too.
That's in the middle, if I'm not mistaken. That was in the middle. That was in the middle.
What was the third one?
The third one was the.
Ooh.
I can't recall.
Is that the underneath one? Is that the one I did for the show?
Yes.
For the zine?
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. So anyway,
under the sheets, under the stairs. Is it that one?
Yeah. So this is yours to have if you want it, but.
Under the bed, the sheets, the stairs. The darkest places are not always the scariest. The attic door has been bolted shut for years. Boxes packed with holiday decor used last when the light in her eyes had just begun to dim. The woman she was left a ghost behind. The ghost she is now remains silent, except on the brightest of days. The sun is responsible for the shadows cast across her old photos. The shadows hold the shape of promises long forgotten, reminding me of how fear molded who we eventually became. Her ghost reassures me that we are stronger now, that there is nothing to hide from that has not been revealed previously. Each lesson, always waiting for its turn to teach, always resting somewhere below the surface. Oh my God, that was amazing!
Bravo!
I love that.
Oh, good.
That was awesome.
And I think that's the I think especially with everything going on with COVID, I personally was trying to connect with musicians and I was doing this thing called the safety jams, and again talking about being creative and trying to get through all this stuff. So that was part of the inspiration. So listening to the some of the spoken word that you did, and just taking some time to listen to it over and over, and then feel like, oh, you know what, let me put my drum to this and stuff. And I thought it was cool. It's got your
that was phenomenal.
Eric.
That was great.
Oh my God, it was so cool. And that so that poem, and you know what's funny is the bloodletting poem that I read on that show.
Yeah.
The moon painting with the blood that you put in that film.
Okay.
Though that writing is from the bloodletting poem. I made that for a show at 3 Sheets, and Sarah Scranton owns that. She bought it.
Kidding. Oh, that's awesome.
But here's the thing: bloodletting is from Sarah. Bloodletting, one of the lines from that is because Sarah I was at Cafe 9 one day, and she was like, KP, if I was bleeding, would you save me? If I was bleeding, would you save? And she was saying this thing, and I said, I'm going to write a poem about that. And that's bloodletting. That's where bloodletting came from. And then I made that painting with the pieces of the poetry.
Yeah.
And it was up at 3 Sheets, and she was like, that's my poem, right? And she's like, I'm buying that. She has it up in her house, in her apartment now.
Would you say a lot of the inspiration then comes from those interactions more so than anything versus like drawing on past experience?
They did for a while. It's all I mean, again, I've been doing this now for 7 years.
Yeah.
So there was a period of time where I could give you. So tomorrow, one of the poems that I'm reading tomorrow is called Heaven. And the first 2 lines of I don't have all my poems memorized. I'm my head, but the first 2 lines of the poem Heaven is he doesn't believe in angels, and neither do I. And that's because I had a friend who messaged me when I was in a very bad way on a Sunday, one Sunday, like late afternoon, early evening. And I just was not feeling good. And my friend texted me a poem or a song. Now I can't even remember. And I went, you came to me like an angel. And he texted to me, I don't believe in angels. And I texted back to him, neither do I. Because that's how I felt in that moment. And then I looked at that text, and it was like, I don't believe in angels, neither do I. And I'm like, that's the beginning of a poem.
Yeah.
I have another poem called Ode to Dreaming that a friend of mine from Cafe 9 posted on Facebook one day. What do you do when you cease to dream? And I messaged him and I said, that's an opening of a poem. Can I have that? And he said, yeah. And that became one of my most popular poems that I read at Cafe 9 that people loved to hear me. And when I read it to him, and this is what always happens. Every time I've written a poem from somebody where I said, can I use that line? I've read them the poem or given them the poem and they're like, holy shit. Like this, I feel like this is about me.
Right.
Can you,
which was never my intention. But for whatever reason, the line carries a piece of them to me.
Sure.
Yeah.
I maybe that sounds super earthy crunchy.
Yeah.
No.
But I'm earthy crunchy, so it's fine. If you are,
why don't you?
It's all good.
Are you willing tonight to read some stuff? Can you read some stuff for us?
Absolutely. What do you want?
I want whatever you feel. Whatever you feel. If there's something, if you want one, you want to do two, you want to do three, whatever you're feeling like.
Since I mentioned that, maybe I should read one of those that I just mentioned.
Yeah, whatever.
Yeah.
I pulled one out that I really so for when I first started writing poems to read out, I started writing. I loved odes. Pablo Neruda's odes really meant a lot to me as I started getting more into poetry. And then what I realized is a lot of the odes I was writing really weren't odes. So I have a lot of poems that are called ode to this, ode to that, and they're really not odes. But no, most people don't care. If I tried to publish them, they probably would get thrown in the garbage. But
most people don't know what an ode is.
Some of them do, and they know that my poem isn't an ode, so that's fine. It's listen, I'm a realist. As long as people like the poem, the title you can always change.
Exactly.
Again, like I tell my students, every piece of writing is a work in progress. Walt Whitman is one of my heroes. Walt Whitman worked on the same book, Leaves of Grass, his entire life. There's a deathbed edition of Leaves of Grass because he was on his deathbed. Editing this book. So
sure.
I have Ode to Dreaming. I'm going to read that one.
Beautiful.
Yeah, please do.
Because that's where we got to be, because I said it.
That's
okay. Right. So it's not really an ode, but who cares?
Doesn't matter.
You let me know. Can I?
Floor is yours.
Yeah, okay. Please do.
Okay. What do you do when you cease to dream? Do you walk the streets endlessly, drink large quantities of wine, whiskey, or some other magic potion sweet? Search for a wild woman, make her your queen? Feed her sugar fresh from your lips as she lies back upon the green grass of your mountain bed? Stir her guts up with promises of passion in pink and red? Comfort her when she breaks instead? Is there comfort in anything if it isn't taken to its end? Is death the only comfort left? Must you pretend that life is the better choice, knowing it is not a choice at all? Must you fall over and over into the same hole, hidden in plain sight? Or is the hole one of your own making, where other worlds awaited you? Jewels, gold, a dragon's lair, a sorcerer's stone, a hiding place for an alien force, though no escape from the torture of knowing you were mostly alone? Would you then try once again to close your eyes at night and see what transpires without judgment of what is wrong or right? Without begging her to tell you something, anything, to keep you from hearing the stories of your own plight buried deep within your troubled mind? Would you let your queen get her beauty sleep? Or do you feel the need to wake her and ask her if she had claimed your love as well as your dreams? How much do you expect her to take? Do you even know what love is? Do you have anything left to say? Let what you love break if it has to, and love it anyway.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bravo.
Yeah, awesome. Like these, it's crazy when you I asked you before, but maybe even that poem in particular, if you can remember, was a real spontaneous thing that kind of you feel like this overwhelming feeling to write and sit, and then it just comes out pretty easily.
That one, I gotta say, that one did that. Like I said, that line, "What do you do when you cease to dream?" Oh,
Yeah.
thank you, Lisa. Hi, Lisa. Speaking of talented artists, holy crap, Lisa's
I know.
like,
Yeah, I talked to Lisa about chatting with us, but she was a little.
Oh, do it, Lisa. I'll cheer on. I'm everybody's cheerleader.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that first line, "What do you," was my friend Lorenzo who posted, "What do you do when you cease to dream?" And when I wrote that and I showed it to him, and he's very much into, like, different movies and online games and things like that a lot of this really spoke to him about, like, the aliens and the dragons and the queen and the different things like that. Now, I can't say that I wrote it for Lorenzo. I will not. I won't say I wrote it for Lorenzo, because I really didn't. It was what came.
Yeah.
Because I thought about it. What do you do when you cease to dream? Like, what do you do?
Yeah.
Do you walk around? And that's where it came to me. It just became a series of questions.
Right.
Because there's no answer.
Right.
What do you do? I don't know how to make myself dream. I don't know if anybody does. So it became a series of questions, which realistically, when you think about it, life is nothing but questions. You very rarely get answers. You really just get another question.
Lots of questions.
This is
Holy crap. Too many questions.
That's a really great point.
Yeah.
So that's where that one came from. And then that very last line, which is let what you love break if it has to and love it anyway, was kind of a thing of mine, where it was like, I joke around about crying. Like, I had a whole thing. I used to put up, places I cried in New Haven. I'm going to write a book called Places I Cried in New Haven. And I was going to that. I was actually going to this year, and with everything shut down, it's kind of like I was going to take pictures and things, and now I kind of can't. So I kind of had that idea, and I've riffed on that joke a lot.
Yeah.
But listen, crying is like the greatest. I've decided as I got older that I was going to feel what I felt and move on.
Yeah.
Because if every time it's like, don't get upset, don't cry, don't do this, you shove it in. And listen, I've been a physical therapist for over 30 years.
Yeah. Yeah.
I do I'm a specialist in manual type therapy. So myofascial release, craniosacral therapy, muscle energy, all the manual types of therapy. I specialize in head, neck, facial pain, TMJ, vestibular disorders. I will tell you something right now. If you shove all your feelings into your body and don't release them, you will end up with physical issues.
Agreed.
You just will.
Yeah.
And we treat those.
As stress. It completely manifests as stress. It's
I read a book about back pain it talked about how it was all manifested through the brain, like the thoughts, like you put into yourself.
A lot of it is.
Oh yeah,
I agree.
Is holding that in. And if you do from an Eastern medicine perspective, which is again my master's degree is in integrative medicine, which is all the different from all over the world and everything. And in Ayurvedic, in Eastern medicines, you talk about like the chakras. So if I go in and do a thoracic inlet release, and I start clearing out this area.
Yeah.
So between the soft tissue, the chakras, what the different organs hold, the lungs hold.
Yeah.
The heart holds. You can get where you start loosening up this area, and people just start talking and spilling, or they start crying.
Yeah.
Because now they're not holding in. They say the same thing about smoking. In Eastern medicine, they say that you smoke to dampen, because the lungs hold grief.
Yeah.
Oh.
So in Eastern medicine, they say you smoke, and when you quit smoking and you clear the lungs out, the grief comes out, and that's why people can't quit, because they They want to bring. Oh, Lisa. I don't want to brag, but I'm really good at it. That's one thing I'm very confident about my manual therapy skills. I'm very good at it.
Well, there you go. Good to know.
Karen, I want to ask you about some of the shorter thoughts that you post in there's a couple of like a couple of words.
Oh, Instagram, yeah.
It's
that's a double that's a rough line there. Some poets think that's the worst thing in the world. Instagram, people who put pieces of poetry on Instagram are hacks.
I mean, this is the day and age, but it's like I appreciate that stuff because it's again going back to this spontaneous thought. There's
I like it too.
There's so many things that come to mind. Like I do the same thing, and I actually on my Instagram page, if I don't, it was kind of like I wonder how long it might take someone to notice. Like these thoughts arise, I experience them, and I'm like, whoa, let me write this somewhere. And then we have this, I think, social media used with the right intentions to put stuff out there, as long as it's helpful or artistic, it's totally fine. It's not hurtful or damaging. So I post these things like yourself, and I always do, instead of grabbing a meme or a quote from someone, so-and-so dash somebody, I do these things, and then I always put a dude, and so the dude is I've never actually really said this. The dude is me. I had this
dude.
I was like, you know what? I don't want to put like Jim Lopresti. So they would come up for me spontaneously. I was like, wow, it's crazy. I'm sitting by the fire. I'm having this experience, and I feel like I want to share it with someone. And obviously, especially being locked down or quarantine or whatever with COVID, it's like you have social media to be able to share it. So those
the connection.
That's what I said. Shocker.
Dave's into micro poetry, which is awesome.
I am too. I think it's a nice. Listen, I did it because it's sometimes, like you were talking about, when things come to you. So sometimes a line comes to me, and I'm like,
Absolutely.
you know what? Let me share it. And if people, and I had so many people who like that, and a lot of the art that I sold and did were these little pieces like that. Like I'm not, yeah.
The words are so powerful. I mean, you string a few words together, they could really just lift you right up. I mean,
people do it
unbelievably
for
so.
me. Yeah, I wanted to get back.
Mm-hmm.
So we have this format here, which obviously I was going to say, COVID's changed everything to make us adapt to things. The spoken word stuff and the poetry obviously isn't happening right now. Yeah. So I if you don't mind, I've actually writing for myself. I've been writing for a long time too, and there's never been a place to put it, and I started to pay attention more to you and what you were doing with spoken word. My motivation to go to Nebco is I'm going to grab some awesome beer. And I see
that's the place to do it.
Absolutely.
What's happening there, music or otherwise. And I saw a couple of flyers that were like, KP hosting this. I was like, oh wow, that's so cool. And then time and scheduling, like, man, I wish I could, get in on that, but I haven't had the opportunity. So you don't mind, I would like to take tonight to read something to you.
Yes, that's my favorite. Yes.
And I think we could, and then if you have time, you don't mind, I would definitely like to hear at least one or two more things from you. So
I absolutely.
So I have
no, I'm excited you're gonna read something.
My little journal. And this is way back, and obviously the experience of taking a moment or something that happens, and then things come up for you, and you have to get it out on paper. So I'm going to read this.
Oh yeah.
Okay, you guys ready? I'm going to take a little.
Ready.
Well, there you go. Take a drink. Yes.
This is going pretty far back, but it's one of my practice. I read it over and I say, oh wow, I really like that. So.
Oh cool. Yeah. Good.
Okay. So ready?
Yes.
Here we go.
For whatever reason why, in summer's heat, the dragonfly packed up in mini swarm, first 2, then 3, then many more. They danced and I dozed. With sunlight's help, wings like prisms, they rose, top of the evergreens, then back around again to catch my thoughts, curious insects. I don't recall so many in one place before. Their needled bodies have come to deliver a cure. Last night's near misses of beasts that dart across the roads caused quite a stir. The dragonfly have come to bid their thank yous and remove those thoughts of self. Gracious little insects.
Oh, I love that.
Nice job, bro.
That's
They
a
danced,
real,
I dozed. I love that.
yeah, a real personal experience, and that was from just hanging out in. I used to live in. I could remember living in Naugatuck. I had a house out there, and sitting in the backyard and seeing these dragonflies, and there was quite a few, and it was a real experience. And then I had time to kind of look, and then all this stuff came up for me, and so that's where that came from. So
Oh, I love that. And dragonflies, the symbolism of dragonflies. That's a I'm sure, I don't know if you must know about the symbolism of dragonflies. I have a feeling like you oh, Lisa, stop it.
Yeah.
You can write a haiku, 575. You can do it. You can write other things too.
575.
575. 575.
That's all it is. 575 is like a zip code.
Wow, you brought me way back.
I know you can. But yeah, so dragonflies are amazing. Yeah, that's really cool. And I love that. That was beautiful.
Thank you. I think hopefully when we get to a point where things open up and we can get back to being in the creative venues safely and comfortably, maybe I'll take some time. Maybe when I back off from tattooing, I can get out there and do some other creative things. So
yeah, but keep writing. But just keep writing. I would see something, you're out like at your fire pit and you see something, or you're driving and you see, driving, I've done that where like I'm driving and I'm like, oh shit, and then I pull over and I say something into my phone.
So
yeah,
what,
capture it.
You don't want to get into an accident.
I'm glad that you brought that up, because I've talked about this before, where people will say, oh dude, it's so awesome that you're an artist and like you're so creative and like it's so good. But there's also this torturous aspect of it, because I experience the same things where I can't sometimes, if you're feeling that stuff, you can't get through a day because I'm doing the same thing. I'm like, oh my God, look at the sunset. I gotta pull over. Like I'm gonna crash my fucking car because I want to capture this moment any way I can.
Yeah. I've done that.
Right. Like that's what I was thinking about. We're talking about living creatively, and I'm telling Corey he's taking time to stop and see those moments. So it's this element. The tortured artist is a real thing, basically, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, and there's also like this thing of like, and listen, I'm gonna be very honest with you guys. Like the when my kids were little, I didn't like what you're talking about having like a 6-year-old. So when my son was 6, I had a 6 and a 3-year-old, or a 6 and a 9-year-old. You know what I mean? Yeah. I wasn't doing shit creative. You know what I mean? I mean, like and listen,
meal planning.
It's enough, please, and or driving again, driving right. Like a taxi, but and I don't regret any of that.
Hell no.
But my mind wasn't there. Now, mind you, I didn't start. So I have friends in the creative community who were creative from their youth, then had their kids and worked around that. See, it wasn't like I put my creativity aside. I dabbled in things, and then once I went to college, I kind of left it. I still loved music. I read books constantly. But I wasn't personally creating.
Right.
So, so I didn't put it aside. I didn't really put it. It wasn't like I had a band and I left the band to have my kids. So the people who are doing those things, some of those people, they'll see me and they'll be like, oh, I can't, like I only could like go to rehearsal twice this week. And I'm like, you can only go to rehearsal twice. Like you're talking to the wrong chick, because I did nothing when my kids were your kids' ages. Nothing. Right. Like I'm in awe of that. It's just, it's a lot, but again, it's not like I was talking about before. It's not this competition. It's just, it's where you are and what you can fit in.
Absolutely.
You know, I have people who say, the people who say to me what they have sometimes also, I think, Jim and Corey, sometimes you have the head for it, and sometimes you don't.
Sure.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like sometimes you may have like a little burst of something, and then you're like, you know what? I just want to go home and go to bed.
Yeah.
And I can't, I'm done.
I think with anything,
and that's okay.
It is
exactly with anything that you're doing in life, whether it is this, you're trying to grab a creative experience, anything that you do, sometimes you have to embrace the fact that you need to go home and get some rest, and that's okay. So that's super important.
It's a big thing, and listen, it's a huge thing, and I think artists are just so bad about it, where we think that if we're not creating, we're lazy, or we're we create all the we're good at I had this a little story I used to tell, and every time I used to tell it, they would say to me, "That's amazing. You should write that, write a book about that." And I'm like, "No, it's not that amazing. It's very actually kind of common sense." So here it is. I'll blow everybody's mind again with this thing. If you're a creator, you're good at creating things. One thing that creators are very good at is creating scenarios.
Oh yeah.
So we create these scenarios that don't exist because we're creators. Like we paint or make or write a story, or make a drawing for a tattoo. We also create scenarios. So we create all these things in our head.
Oh yeah.
That will never happen. That did never happen.
Oh man.
Where we spend so much time on it, and I say that because I've done it a million times, not because I'm a judge. Again,
that's why I'm in therapy.
Yes, we've been there. We've all been there, I think.
What are you talking about, Jim? That's not happening. I'm like, well, it could.
and that's the should thing, which I've totally stole from, the Sex and the City, like the coulda, woulda, shoulda. There's an episode called Coulda, Woulda, Shoulda. And that's what they do through the thing, is Carrie says this thing, and Samantha keeps going, coulda, woulda, shoulda. Coulda, woulda, shoulda. And you don't, and the shoulding, you don't should all over yourself, because should accomplishes nothing.
Well, I'm going to write that down. Right. Don't should. So,
but that's part of that, is that scenario thing. Like, why didn't I do this and this and all this? And maybe they hate me. And
it's overthinking, right?
And we all do it.
Our brains are trained to that's the thing. It's so much work to just try to stay right here, because most of that thinking either is going about something that's happened in the past or something that hasn't happened yet.
Exactly.
So, but right now is like that most important thing. And quite honestly, so like Jim, we were going to mention the Bill Murray doc. This is actually a good tie into this. So I don't know if you've seen the Bill Murray documentary. It came out in 2018.
Yeah. No.
Incredible.
You got to see it. It's so.
I mean, it's Bill Murray. It's got to be great, probably, right?
So so not to go too much into it, but there's urban legends about him popping up in random places. I mean, we're talking we're talking college dorm parties. Bill Murray's there. Yeah, he's in a house and he's cleaning dishes for all these kids that are partying in this other. I mean, it's stuff like that. But it has to do with that moment, and he puts himself in that moment because of his presence. And his presence brings he's it's amazing, the joy he brings. And this guy basically does nothing but just be there.
Yeah.
He's not flaunting anything. He's not flowing money around. Yeah. He's just in the moment, just watching and observing and actually engaging with the person and asking what they're about, wanting to do something nice for them. It's just such a genuine thing. But that presence, that moment, being right now, takes away a lot of that thinking. But it's really hard to be here right now. Yeah. It's just so hard.
It's the scariest place. Present is the scariest place to be. Being in the past.
Yeah.
In the future, the past, the past you can rewrite. The past can be comfortable, or you can rewrite it.
Sure.
And sometimes even the pain of the past is a familiar pain.
Mm-hmm.
And more comfortable than being in the present, where you have no clue. And the future you would think, well, the future is the most comfortable place, but the future, you also can create a scenario and decide what the future is going to be.
Well, yeah.
You know what's
yeah, absolutely.
These are ideas.
You got a point. Good point there, Corey.
Yeah, these
really
are good. Absolutely. These are ideas and thoughts that are strong, that have been strong forever. But it seems like now if you have a deep thinker, and mostly, I don't know, Karen, if you would agree, you have the creative type. We have those experiences. We're like, whoa, you know, you're doing some deep thinking, but it seems like because of everything going on, it's like across the board where people are forced to do a little bit more deep thinking, and exactly what we're talking about tonight. Yeah. So it's like, you know, you're slowing down and saying like, whoa, you know, like this is, I need to be here and grounded to get through this shit because we're forced to. It's almost, I've often talked about one thing about the winter that I appreciate. You know, people are like, fucking it's gonna snow, we gotta fucking plow,
I love it.
I love it too, because, I mean, I always call like a great storm or the snow, it's the great equalizer. I've always called it, because you wake up and it's you know, everything is blanketed in white snow.
I love it.
And it's like, and everyone that we're rushing around to do our life, and now all of a sudden we're like, oh man, I gotta wait for the plow to come, and school canceled. So it slows us down, and it becomes the great equalizer. And I think that's what COVID and the pandemic has done for us. It's leveled the playing field, so to speak, where we've dialed back, and we're like, wow, like this is like a real thing. You know, we're not going to fucking, you know, Outback every Thursday night and getting some
right,
you know, chicken out of the body.
Blooming onion, baby.
I've never been to Outback. Fun fact, I've never been to Outback. Every time when that was like,
it's not too shabby, not gonna lie.
Make a nice day.
Well, you know what? The thing with Outback is when they started, it was a big deal. Joey and I would go there, and they would say, "Oh, it's a 2-hour wait."
Yeah.
And we would say, "Oh, you're welcome." we would say, they'd say 2-hour wait, and I'd be like, "I ain't waiting 2 hours to eat. I'm not that girl.
You can eat twice in 2 hours."
And they would go, "Oh, here's a coupon for a free Bloomin' Onion when you come back." And then we would go back going, "Oh, we're gonna
see Bloomin' Onion. I just said that. Bang! Lisa knows what's up."
With our coupon, and they'd say 2-hour wait, and I'd be like, "Fuck that, I ain't going." And we get another coupon. We accumulated all these.
You get a bunch of free meals.
All right.
Because I didn't stop going back, because I'm like, I don't want to wait for 2. If this is going to happen every time, I ain't going there because I need to eat. I was just being pregnant. I was a nightmare. I was a nightmare. I cried one time. What's that place in
Outback?
Cheshire? No. I cried at a restaurant. Pasta. Not Pasta Fair. What was that pasta place in Cheshire?
Oh, God, I'm not sure.
It was Pasta something. All the rest were called Pasta Fair. It was called something else. We went there, and they're like, "You got to wait like 10 minutes. We got to get a table ready." I'm like, "I can't wait. I can't even wait 10 minutes." And they're like, "Well, we could sit you in front and they had like an open kitchen. They're like, "Well, we'll sit you over here." And I sat there, and I'm like, "I can't sit here. I'm sweating." I was pregnant. I'm like, "I can't sit here. I'm sweating. I'm already hot." I burst into tears. I'm like, "You need to get me to a restaurant." And we went to, what the hell was the place down the street near the golf course? I don't know. It was a nightmare. You tell everybody about it, and he's like, she was crying and screaming.
Oh my God!
She had to eat, and we walked in the other place, and they had like a salad bar, and I walked in, and I'm like, "Can I go get my food right now?" Oh, I was the worst. Oh, I was so bad.
I want you, Karen, if you don't mind, I would love for you to read something else.
It's okay.
No, it's totally fine. We got all night, baby.
What a nightmare I was. Oh my God, what a nightmare. I'm not that bad anymore. I promise. I can take care of myself a little better. Okay, so let's see. I saw this one. You know what? I kind of feel like with the dragonfly one, I want to read this one. This one was actually called Ode to One Not So Lost in the Woods. And again, it's not really an ode, but I like this one. This one tells a lot about where I was at that moment in time. about, I think you know what, Jim, I think Jim and Corey, I think what you're both talking about, I think you'll like this one.
All right.
Cool.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Okay. Let me take a drink of wine first, like you did.
Yeah. Bring it in.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Okay. The forest calls. The fir trees spit their needles at me, pierce my skin like an injection. Sap drips out the corner of my mouth and down my chin. Pine cones sprout from my outstretched palms, capturing the attention of every red bird in passing flight. There is no place here for rights and errors. There is only life. Even the death of one leaf is the giving towards another's need. Under the hush of the wind's breath, my feet float up above the ground. The moss gathered beneath delivers a sweet and pungent scent that prevents my complete detachment from the scene. He told me once that he formed attachments to nothing and did not know if this was a good or bad way to be. Though I will say his position lends itself to presence, it also seems like somewhat of a prison sentence. Maybe it doesn't, maybe it does. I know he cares, but I'm not sure if he loves. Perhaps this is the better choice. Love has frequently been my excuse to pursue or regress. The distress it has delivered has far outweighed its glory. But my extended time in the shade has since changed my story. I now know that I have mistaken gratitude for love more often than not. But I am also thankful to have taken this lesson to heart rather than letting it stunt my growth. The branches that surround me offer their protection, allowing a weathering of self to the degree under which I profess to be held. Blooming, skyward I rise. My roots left as memory. My past decisions, my only deviation from nature's order. Becoming one with a world where one cannot merely be part of the sum. A cardinal lands on my left hand, a dragonfly on my right. Satisfied to continue their flight as passenger for now until it is their time. Until a new ideation is endowed, no less than full confession is allowed. Why lie to yourself when all truths will eventually be known? Air to wing, mud to stone, nothing bears everything alone.
Bravo!
There were so many so many lines that I was like grasping onto as you were reading.
Yeah.
And then I was like, I can't keep up because I need to just listen, because there were so many things that were sticking out for me, and I was like, oh man, like this is awesome, but I want to listen to the next line. So
Thank you.
I love it. Yeah.
Thanks, Lisa.
It's great.
Thank you guys that are all out there in Facebook land.
Yeah, no, that was great.
That one actually came to me. I had, and again, it doesn't, names don't matter, or where I met them doesn't matter, kind of thing. But I had somebody tell me about not getting attached to anything.
Yeah.
And it was really unusual because this particular person, if you met them or talked to them, and knew them, you would never think like this is a person who doesn't attach to anything.
Yeah.
And the person was very big about, love. And I'm like, but do you love? Like, can you, it started making me question that, like, can you love something and not be attached to it? And so it became a very big, which you can hear in the poem, it became like a study of like presence.
Yeah.
So you have this idea of like in the woods, in the forest, the woods is like this kind of self-feeding thing. You know, the bugs, the birds, the wild animals, the tree, everything just kind of happens there, whether we're there or not. You know, did the tree fall in the woods if you didn't hear it, kind of thing. But we all know stuff happens in the woods whether we're there or not.
Oh God, yeah. Yep.
Whether we're aware of it. So you could be in the woods and see all this shit happening, and if you're not there, it's still happening.
Yeah.
You know, and so the idea of you know, the judgment and the idea of somebody telling you how they are or knowing how somebody is or isn't, like, do you have to witness that for it to happen? So do I have to see, you know, if you tell me you don't attach to things, do I take your word for it, or do I tell you you're wrong, or do we even have an argument about it?
Well,
is it even worth it?
Yeah, you're gonna go there, Jim.
The one, huh?
I was gonna say the thing about attachment. One of the things I know coming from like the Buddhist side of things. Yeah, they talk about how it's more of a negative. Like that's it's something that
root of suffering.
Yes, thank you. That's where I was trying to go. Thank you. But and so you could see where, well, like, do you need attachment to love? Well, I mean, think of folks that have gone before us, right? I mean, there's like that eternal connection. Like they're not physically around for an attachment, but that connection's going to be there forever because of the love you've had for that person, right? You know, it's very interesting. But I love that one. That's
I think
phenomenal.
The line that stood out and almost summed it up was there's no place for rights and errors. It's like it really kind of summed up the whole thing. You know, the rights you have or mistake, no place for either of that. So you're in this like kind of like floating like place. So yeah, that was awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah, you know, you're welcome. But yeah, that presence thing, and then really like even the idea of like the cardinal and the dragonfly both represent like death and then transfer of life. You know, that's the whole idea. If you see a cardinal, it supposedly is the person that died, or that's my, you know, people say, oh, I saw a cardinal, that's daddy, you know, or you see the dragonfly, and the idea of the symbolism of the dragonfly is the same thing of like the carrying over from one plane to the next. So the idea of that is accepting that this is who this person is. And that's how they're going to be, just like you accept that, you know, the trees are going to lose their leaves and they're not going to die. They're just going to come back again. And whatever dies is going to go back into the earth, and the earth is going to, I have another poem where I say, not everything. Oh, I could find it. Now I have to find the exact line because I have it right here. The poem's called Funeral.
Ooh.
And the line is, not everything that is buried in the earth grows.
Okay. Oh.
Deep.
But that could be just it there. You don't have to hear the rest of the poem, but that's a line in there. But the idea that, you know, the world, again, like the woods, this stuff happens in the woods and we're not there. Humans don't necessarily, you don't have to be, you're not lost in the woods. The woods are fine. You're fine.
Yeah.
You're just a visitor.
Yeah.
We're all just visitors here. Like I'm getting deep now.
That is true.
This is a good place to be at 11 o'clock on a Saturday after all the wine. But
the Crush Corner. Getting deep with it.
That's what we do.
I love it.
So and it's weird because I normally this is not a negative, but for the longest time, I did not like talking about my poems but see, this is different, and I'll say why. Because I'm reading the poems and then we're talking about them. Yeah. When people would say, tell me what your poem, like they never heard one go, tell me what you write about, tell me about your poems. It's like, or tell me what this poem is like before you read it. I'm like, I like to read the poem, or if somebody read the poem, and then it's what it means to you. That's
yeah. I mean, that's exactly what art is. You. Yeah. Yeah. You can view a painting or something like that, and it's
any piece of art, even music.
Whether you're looking at a painting or listening to someone recite poetry, it's it's coming into you, and it's your own interpretation. You know, I can paint something and have one idea about it and present it to someone, but they're gonna have their own interpretation of it, and it's gonna affect them differently.
Sure.
Just like the poetry is the same thing. You can listen to it and say, "Wow, you know, this is crazy," and you could say, "Well, this was my intention when I wrote it," but someone can say, "Wow, well, I took something different from it," and that's the beauty of art, you know.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Subjective,
Subjective. Absolutely, it absolutely is, and that's why the idea of writing about doing the arts journalism. That's one of the things I talk about with the kids. Because they want to. They're teenagers, so they have strong they either could care less or they have super strong feelings about things. When we do criticism, like art criticism, music criticism, they couldn't wait. My first semester, they couldn't wait to do. I said, write about something that I don't like to use the word hate, but write about a song you don't like, a movie, something in art you don't like, and write about it. I'm like, but you can't just say to me, I hate it or it sucks. I want to know why. You back that up.
Gotta have some why.
Yeah.
You back that up with examples of why. So to hear them do that and to challenge them to do that, but it's also the same thing with what you love. Like my kids are going to come in this week with their assignment was tell me about your favorite song. And I'm like, I don't want to hear amazing, incredible, awesome. I want you, after the end of reading that, I want to know why it's awesome.
Yeah.
Show, like that's the show, don't tell. The same thing with me writing an article and you saying like you felt like you were there.
Yeah.
Yep.
Tell me about this song and make me go at the end of it like, wow, yeah, I feel that.
Right.
Because I'm not going to feel what you feel about that song, but you can show me that part of that song or that thing with that song that made you feel that way. That's what I want to see. That's what I want to hear. And they're so into like hyperbole.
Yeah.
Worst thing I ever saw. And we've all been there. So, sure. but that's the thing with arts writing, critical writing, is to be able to back up what you're talking about, because we all have reactions.
Yeah.
So reactions is like, I see a painting and I'm like,
yeah. And
I may be like, oh, my word may be amazing. Yours may be incredible, awesome, whatever the word is.
Right.
But then how do I respond to that? So that's the other thing I've learned in my life. So even with my emotions not related to art. So somebody says something to me or I have an experience, I have a reaction. It could be anger, joy, sadness, whatever. That's my reaction. I acknowledge the reaction and then I hang back and then I create a response.
Gotcha. Yep.
Because you can't just be like, fuck off to everybody. I mean, no. You could, but it doesn't solve a lot.
No.
It's not, So and even with more I won't say it's not positive, but even with more like loving something, you just can't be. I don't know. It doesn't work for me anymore. I have to like sit with things.
You have. So there was there's something you said, and I think this will kind of sum everything up for us for tonight, especially, and for the year. In the last program you did on Cygnus, which I really truly love what you said. You talked about I think it was the end of the program, and it was like you were reflecting on like the songs that were played, the last poem that you read, and how things were for you personally, and that they were weird just like everyone else. And you said we have to meet everybody where they are and try to have some understanding, and have some understanding for ourselves as well. And I was like, man, this is like, that's it. It's like you have to find this. It's really based in compassion and getting through what everything is, what everyone is experiencing, and basically meeting people where they are. You know, if they're freaking out with everything going on, and if they're doing okay with everything, if they feel fucked up, if they feel sad, if they're like, yeah, my life's okay. So wherever they are, it's like you have to meet them there, and then and I think in order to do that, you have to have, like you said, understanding for ourselves. You know, where are we at? Because I don't think you can really give anything back to anyone if you don't know where you're at. And
and that's a great point, because if you think about presence, right, and the ability as people to influence other people, again, without even really saying or doing anything, right, like necessarily, but just being there with a smile on your face, right, the littlest little influence could make or break somebody's day, you know.
Right.
And that's where that idea of just, like we said it before, I think earlier when we first started, about being like trying to be our best selves, you know, and that you don't even necessarily see it or notice it, but you could be walking in the room like a beacon, right? Like a lighthouse, because people know like what you carry about yourself and how you treat others, and they see that, and you don't even have to say a word, and it just speaks volumes, and it helps others, and it's like uplifting. It's like a rising tide.
Yeah. You know my favorite saying in the world is, it's on my refrigerator. It was on, you know, those little date calendars that you rip off every day, and it has like a little quote. I had one that had Proverbs on it one year, and this one's from must have been a weekend. It's like, says like January 31st, February 1st. Even my kids have seen this their entire life on my refrigerator. I never threw it out. And it says, the closer you stand to the lighthouse, the darker it gets.
I
that
like
is
that.
My favorite quote in the world.
That's a good one. That's a good one.
Because it's the lesson I wanted. I had to keep reminding myself as I searched for the answer. I always searched for, my whole life. I was like, why? You're so smart. You read all these books. You do all this research. You need to find the answer. You know, I raised Catholic. You need to find the answer. Like, you know, it's God. You look to God and Jesus, and they're not what is the answer? Like, oh, the Bible's this thick. Oh my God. And I saw that, and I was like, holy crap. Yes. Yeah. And a couple times my youngest son, who's my kids are, again, not because they're my boys, but they're great. And my youngest son would, every so often I'd be like, Nick, what does it say on the refrigerator? He's like, I know, the closer you get to the lighthouse, the darker it gets. I'm like, exactly. you know, they don't even have to, they've been reminded a million times. And that's part of it, is like that look, you know, looking for that thing, you know, that thing, and the presence prevents you from looking for the thing or that thing. You like have to sit with yourself, like you were saying, and people were forced to sit with them. All of us, no matter how busy we were or weren't, whether we were working or furloughed or whatever, to have to sit with yourself and be, especially that first 2 weeks.
Oh,
like,
God.
I keep thinking of when you think back to those 2 weeks. First of all, nobody knew if we were all going to just drop dead in 2 weeks. We just, it was fair enough. When you think about it now, even though things are bad right now, like the numbers are bad right now, that was different because nobody knew anything. Right. We at least know stuff now that we didn't know then. But that 2 weeks of like, okay, is this, you know, people are like, this is like Stephen King. This is like The Stand. And I'm like, well, totally. Well, it is, but it isn't. If you've read The Stand, like we would have been dead already if this was The Stand.
Right.
So I'm sorry, I'm a Stephen King freak. So I got a little weird with that one, but I know what people meant. It was a very uncertain time.
Well, I said that over and over. I told Tracy, I was like, this is pretty wild. I was like, and I've said it a couple times. It's like, I'm like, this is like Hollywood meets reality. Like there's some there's some shit happening, and I'm like, this is Hollywood meets reality. Like, look,
that's why truth is stranger. When they say truth is stranger than fiction, you can't make this shit up.
Right, exactly.
Real life. We've all been off. I don't have to know anything about your lives to know that the two of you have been through shit. I've been through shit that you're like, I could write a book.
Here's to going through shit.
Go through shit.
So yeah. So and that's the thing, is that first 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Was just this like really
surreal.
It felt like time wasn't moving. Honestly,
it was just
slow.
God,
Everything was slow.
Oh my! March 13th was just the worst day. Like a million things happened.
Oh, yeah.
That day felt like a year long.
Yeah,
and everything happened each day. So much happened for like 4 days, and so I think we're in a different place now. But it really kept people.
Yeah.
It changed everything, where people had to start again being present and facing things that they don't normally have to.
Right. Like alternatives for toilet paper. I mean, that's a major dilemma.
I ate so much cake. I ate so much cake that day. I was like, I will not die with a salad in my stomach. I will die with something fatty and delicious.
The COVID-20.
No offense to salads. I love vegetables. My parents were fruit and vegetable fans. I love vegetables, but I ain't dying with lettuce in my stomach. That's
no.
I'm gonna play a promo for a new promo I put out on Instagram and whatnot that I use for it's probably gonna be an ad eventually, and then we're gonna wind down with some final thoughts here. So this is the CKD promo. We're gonna So within that
awesome.
At the end of it, it's I have a little thing. It's on the website. It's for those of us traveling on a different path with our best foot forward, and I think it really sums up like everything that Crush Kill Destroy is about. And it's like we grab onto a creative way of living, and like we were talking about earlier before, it doesn't mean making paintings or making or writing poetry or this and this. You have to reach beyond that. And it's like for someone to go out and do their everyday, especially now, do their everyday living, whatever the job that they have, and embrace it and do it fearlessly. It's like that's creative living. But because there's a lot of people that are like, fuck this, I can't deal with this stuff, and I get that aspect of it too. But if you can dig down deep and be like, you know what, I got a job to do, I'm gonna do it, and I'm gonna do it damn good, which is a lot Crush Kill Destroy motto.
Right.
That's what's really important to bringing these mottos to life, putting them on t-shirts, and hopefully if you get an inkling of inspiration and drive to put one foot in front of the other, that's what Crush Kill Destroy is all about. So I hope that people really connect and relate to that stuff, and they're not those ideas come from my personal experiences that I have crossing paths with awesome people. That's the motivation to do the Crush Corner, and also that we are in this pandemic time and we have to kind of connect this way with the virtual stuff and using it for right intention. So
this is this is great. Listen, it's the same thing, similar to what I was talking about tonight with covering the show. So the idea of going out to a show, people are like, well, you're going to go out and listen. It was outside. I'm not going to explain myself, and I'm not going to explain it the way it is, except to say that my job is to do this. And yes, I could have said no to it, but the idea is that to be able to take some video and pictures and say to people, this happened, and have them be able to have a piece of that, and they didn't have to be out there, and maybe they missed it. I mean, there were people there, but there were a lot of people who weren't there.
Right.
And they read these things, and they see these things, and they watch, you know, a live stream, or they watch a vodcast. They call it vodcast now, right? Video podcast.
I just learned that.
But whatever you do, so there's all these options. So you don't, I mean, think about it like this. Think of all the things. I'm not saying, again, COVID was awesome to have, but think of all the things that if it wasn't for this lockdown,
I agree.
There's all these courses now and things you can go to that you can see that are being offered. That I know a lot of people who would never go downtown to see anything. So now there's a live stream and they watch it. You know, or there's a class going on, or there's something at Woolsey Hall and they video it and they put it up and they're like, oh, I got to see this thing at Woolsey Hall.
Well, that's the adaptability that we've been forced to do. And
innovate.
Right. And use it. And again, it all comes down to intention, you know, and like moving forward and seeing that there's, you know, maybe a rise in the number of COVID cases and stuff. We have to just, you know, you keep your intentions right. And that's that, you know, we have to, you know, Dave just said the world is still moving, and that's like, what else are we to do? We can put these things in place for our own safety, and we can listen and respect them and do that. But that doesn't mean, you know, we're going to go dig ourselves a hole and be like, oh my God, you know, we have to keep moving. And that's the point of this whole thing. You have to keep moving safely and respectively and smart, because there's people that are not doing things so smart. And then there's those of us that say, you know, I need to embrace the arts and my work and this and this and this, and I'll take every precaution I need to protect myself, respect my fellows, and do what I have to do.
Yep.
The world keeps spinning.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's the thing that both of you have talked about with the, you know, the Buddhist idea of, and then the thing that that really to me has come out in 2020 is the idea of the ego. So ego now, and we can talk, I mean, we could have did a whole show about ego because it's so big, but the idea, right. Yeah. But like the idea of ego, and that it's really, you know, when you're sitting there saying, well, I'm going to make the best decisions for me.
Right.
This is really, you know, you have to look at the world. So, you know, the idea of wearing the masks, or whether you go out or not, or what you choose to do, that you have the idea of thinking about everybody, not just yourself, you know, like, listen, we talked about it already. I used to be out 4 nights a week.
Yeah.
Sometimes 5 nights a week. I'm not out. I'm barely out 1 night a week. I'm out maybe 1 night every 3 weeks a month.
Right.
I could very easily sit there and complain and be on Facebook every day going, oh my God, I wish I was at Cafe 9. Oh my God, this. I'm not saying that people can't miss what they miss or be melancholy or anything. I'm not saying they can't. I'm not saying I haven't been. But the idea is that we to only think, to be like this and only think about what you are missing,
right,
and what you want to do and need to do or can't do in right now is just it's a very uncomfortable feeling for me. Nobody can be completely selfless,
right.
But if you get so bogged down in ego, you're carrying, it's such a weight to carry. It's really
it is.
Yeah.
It's a really tough, it's a really, I can't.
Yeah. You have to
when I see that now, I just, honestly, to be honest with you, I block out. I've learned to kind of develop this kind of, I don't want to say shell, but blocking of it out, because I can't participate in that anymore.
Yeah.
It's to me, that's exhausting.
Yeah.
And draining.
It's a deflector shield.
I talked to a good friend of mine, and him and his wife, he found that his way of coping with things and getting through was to kind of shut off certain things that weren't necessary, maybe, from the outside world, so that they could just kind of minimize the chatter in their brains and just kind of like do what they needed to do, safely, and not have to deal with that stuff. So yeah, I definitely understand that sentiment. It's
whatever works. I mean, I think that's so the idea, and again, the crush, kill, destroy, and the idea of that, like being the best you can be, and kind of going out there and doing and creating and adding to the world and adding to the dialogue and things like that. And then again, there's that part of it, like I said, of taking care of yourself. Listen, I took care of everybody else. I didn't take care of myself. I was very sick and very drained and kind of useless a lot of the time when I wasn't taking care of other people. And the idea of being able to rest and rejuvenate, even though it's a pandemic, and it's a weird kind of weird to think about it that way, but
it is.
In a pandemic, you really, even more so now, it's a call to say, not so much like, jog and eat your vegetables, but sometimes you need to just sit.
Yeah.
And rest, or go to bed early, or take a nap, or
it's a huge reset for
your
everyone.
Yard.
It's a reset for the world, and it's important to pay attention to that stuff. Sometimes we need a little bit of a slap in the face, and this is a huge one. So I get it.
Yeah, we didn't ask for it, but it's here. And listen, nobody ever guaranteed that we were going to get. We had a nice run. Nobody ever guaranteed that we were going to have this wonderful, ideal atmosphere to live in. It was never not an issue that something, it was never not going to maybe happen.
Right.
It was always a possibility.
Sure.
And now it's here. Yeah. And we're hopefully going to deal with it a little better as time goes on. I don't know, but you got to start with yourself. And I'm not saying I'm perfect, but I'm doing the best I can. I always try to do my best. And, I if I can put something in the world that helps people feel a little better. I mean, I used to have actually people on the table and make them physically feel better in a half an hour. But if I can put words out there, if I can teach kids, if I can make somebody smile, I mean, whatever, if it's
I mean, when it comes down to the bottom line, is like to add any sort of positivity to this whole experience that we can. That's really what it comes down to, and I think that was the motivation behind doing the Crush Corner, to take opportunities like this to talk to people like yourselves that are continuing to create and to reflect on things with your writings, and deliver things through the New Haven Independent, and say, this band is doing their thing, even though COVID is happening. They've done this, and this. And
it's unbelievable. My radio show tomorrow. My radio show tomorrow.
We get my coffee already and listening.
Everybody on it. I think everybody on it. It's all maybe Rickolas, the very first song. I think that's maybe a couple months. Everything's new this year. If it hasn't been out in the past couple of weeks, it's out in the past couple of months. The music and I talk about it.
Yeah.
The musicians did not stop writing. And listen, some of them did, and that's okay. Because again, like we talked about before, there's some musicians who are like, oh my God, I haven't written anything, I haven't recorded anything, I haven't played a show. And then there's a couple of people have had like 8, 9, 10 songs out, an album, a couple EPs, whatever. People are still creating, and it's nice to hear. It's nice. Some of them are political, some are just kind of fun. I did one tomorrow is going to be a couple of shows ago. I read a Walt Whitman piece, and this a friend of mine, Rob Nelson, who's a musician, he's a prolific writer, musician, amazing guy. He asked me to read this Walt Whitman piece and put it to music. And then do you know Frank Critelli?
Oh yeah. Yeah, I tattooed.
You know Frank, right?
Yeah,
Frank is Frank is amazing. Yes.
He's
Frank
awesome.
is amazing. So Frank, Frank is the reason I'm on Cygnus Radio. He's the one who asked me to do it.
Yeah, it's awesome.
And Frank also did a piece for Rob for a song, but Frank sent me just him reading Oh Me, Oh Life. Oh my God. It's so, I listened to it and I'm like crying. And then a new song of his. So you have me. The show starts with my piece with Rob with the music. So it's me reading the piece that Rob put to the music.
Awesome.
And then the show ends with Frank reading his piece and then a new song of
so
Frank.
Nice.
So it's really cool. And Frank is, oh me, oh life. You just hear the first line and you're like,
right.
oh, it's like Elvis. It's like, oh, it's, and this is me. Like I'm gonna tell you, you probably can tell already. I will never not be excited by this stuff. You telling me you read a poem, it's like, oh my God, I am the, whether I'm 15, 53 or 103, I am Italian grandma, auntie, hippie. I think you are amazing. I love you. And I will be excited for everything you do. You should see me with my students. I'm like,
so awesome.
Again, I'm not this person who has, I haven't written like a bunch of books. I have no awards. But I told every one of them, I'm like, everything you write, I will be like your biggest cheerleader. I just want people to feel good about themselves. And if I see a glimmer, I want that, make that glimmer into like the moon. I want it to be a spotlight. I want people, I want to be able to give to people what I always wanted, which is to feel like I'm a part of the world.
Sure.
I think that is a high point and an excellent place to end our Crush Corner episode. Like I think it's perfectly spoken, and
oh, you guys are so sweet.
I totally like
you're the nicest.
Thank you.
So awesome.
I want to be here every Saturday and feel good about myself and make people feel good about themselves.
You tune in. We're spreading the love.
But it's good, and it has to make you guys feel good too.
Oh, absolutely. We talk about it all the time.
Yeah, I mean that's what we're here for, to extend positivity.
And the Crush, Kill, Destroy. And I will tell, and I just want to tell. So listen. So obviously, I am quite endowed. These shirts are fantastic because there's nothing worse than a shirt where it's like you see like only part of the logo, and then people are like, "Oh, what's on your shirt?" And you're like, "Yeah, I know." Like, yeah, no, I've been this side. Yeah, this is how I've been most of my adult life. I got it. So, but no, you did a great job with the women's shirts.
Thank you.
Yeah, they're beautiful.
So I want to thank you so much for hanging out with us tonight. I had an awesome time.
Thank you guys so much.
Bravo.
Corey, it was nice to meet you.
Absolutely. Yeah, we'll run into each other, I'm sure, once we get rid of all this craziness, because I am a big frequenter of the New Haven area, Cafe 9.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, we'll run into each other, I'm sure.
Everybody's hanging. I mean, listen, everybody's hanging in down there best they can.
That's it.
Paul is, I'm keeping hopeful because I cannot participate in the opposite of hopeful.
Oh yeah.
Yep, I got you. There's only one way: positive mindset.
Yep.
So
what's up, Rick?
Thank you all for joining in, and Karen.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you so much, and we will see you all soon. Everyone, be safe.
Yes.
Yes.
Thanks again for joining in on Crush Corner, and we'll catch you in 2 weeks.
Cheers.
Cheers.